Chapter 2016. Hey, why are you so mean with your words? Xia Tianxin stood up angrily and slammed the table hard. Say that again if you dare. What? Do you want to hit me? The boy named Lin Xiao retorted. As a new student, I advise you to restrain yourself. No one in this class will help you. As Lin Xiao spoke, he stood in front of Cheng Xingxing and Luo Qingshun and looked at them with hostility. Why? Don't you think it's shameful for a student to have such a relationship with a teacher? Guanzhang couldn't sit still. He thought that his exposure would make Luo Qingshun a target of public criticism. Her classmates would definitely not like her and would definitely condemn her. She would definitely regret not accepting his offer to be his girlfriend. He wanted to see her regret so much. That way, he would feel inexplicably satisfied. Actually, I'm just a little surprised. I don't think it's shameful. In the silent class, a girl sitting in the first row with black-rimmed glasses stood up and looked at Guanzhang. Besides, I don't think it's a big deal. I agree. Also, we've been in the same class as Qingshun for 3 years, and she's never had a boyfriend. It's normal to get together with someone you like. Qingshun, don't panic. We'll all support you. No one in grade 12 class 1 will criticize you. When I entered the school gate this morning, I saw 2 juniors discussing Qingshun. I immediately scolded them. It's none of their business. I also support Qingshun. Qingshun has good taste. A girl patted her chest and smiled. If Teacher Gong likes him, I don't mind dating him. Anyway, we're going to university soon. University is the world of dating. In fact, at this moment, Luo Qingshun couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. She almost cried. In the past, whenever she encountered such a situation, her classmates couldn't wait to see her make a fool of herself. They couldn't wait to push her into the abyss so that she would never be able to make a comeback. Every time, she was the only one who stood in the limelight and became her own hero. But this time, not only did she not receive any responsibilities from her classmates, she even felt like she was being protected by them. This feeling was like a warm current flowing into her heart bit by bit. The touched feeling in the depths of his heart was simply indescribable. Are you all sick in the head? Guanzhang bit his lip and looked at them with a red face. So what if you protect her? The school will not allow this to happen. That so-called math teacher will definitely be expelled. Guanzhang couldn't believe that not only was he not supported, but he was also attacked by everyone in the class. He couldn't accept it. Why? On what basis could a teacher-student relationship not be criticized, but a righteous man like him who exposed the scandal had to be criticized? Whether or not Teacher Gong will be expelled is not up to you. The next second, Luo Qingshun glanced at the clock on the school wall and said, "Soon, everything will be settled." Impossible. If a teacher like Gong Mubai can still teach him Wang Chuan, I, Guanziyang, will write my name backwards. Guanziyang roared and walked toward the classroom door. Chapter 2017. At the school's radio station, every 2 periods, a song would be played to ease the mood of the students. Guanziyang walked up to the radio station alone and snatched the host's microphone without saying a word. Hello everyone, I'm Guanzhang, a student who just transferred to grade 12 class 1. The moment Guanzhang's voice appeared at the radio station, Cheng Xingxing had already pulled Luo Qingshun to follow him to the radio station. In fact, she knew very well what Guanzhang would do. He was a simple-minded person with well-developed limbs, so the most he could do was stir up public opinion at the radio station. However, in her eyes, this method was really the worst plan. I believe everyone has already seen the post on the forum. In fact, there's no harm in telling everyone that the post on the forum was made by me. Guanzhang admitted to the post on the forum without any hesitation and added, I just can't accept that a teacher who is a role model would have improper thoughts about his own student and even take a student to a hotel to get a room. At this moment, Gong Mubai, who was sitting in the chairman's seat, took a sip of coffee and a cold glint flashed through his eyes. The principal beside him immediately said, Quick, go to the radio station and arrest that person for me. Expel him from school. No need. Gong Mubai raised his cold eyes slightly, and the corner of his mouth curved into an extremely faint smile. Our family's Qingshun will take care of it. I don't want to steal her limelight. Cough, cough. Sure enough, in the next second, Luo Qingxin's voice came from the radio station. Cheng Xingxing had secretly plugged in another microphone that was connected to the radio station. You? Why are you here? Guanzhang turned around and saw Luo Qingxin lazily leaning against the radio station's door. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. He didn't know why, but at this moment, his heart was pounding and he had a bad premonition. As a bystander, you can come. As the female lead, why can't I come? Luo Qingxin snorted coldly. Her eyes filled with absolute coldness. Guanzhang shuddered and took a deep breath. Am I wrong? I took the photo with my own hands. Don't tell me you still don't want to admit it? Or do you want to say that you and your math teacher only went to the hotel to study calculus? Ha ha ha. Does everyone believe me? In the next second, Luo Qingxin looked up coldly and said, We're not going to the hotel to study calculus. We're going to see our parents. Guanzhang was stunned for a moment. He thought that Luo Qingxin would argue about going to the hotel, but he didn't expect her to admit it so generously. Looking at you, I know that you have nothing to say. Luo Qingxin shrugged and chuckled. 3 months later, the business circle of the city will hold the grandest wedding, and Gong Mubai and I will be the protagonists of this wedding. When Luo Qingxin said this, Gong Mubai, who was sitting in the chairman's seat, couldn't help but smile. This feeling of exposing their relationship under the sun felt really good. I don't understand what you're saying. Shouldn't you officially admit that you went to the hotel with your math teacher? Guanzhang roughly understood Luo Qingxin's words, but he couldn't fully understand it. He could only find the most evidence to let himself have the upper hand in public opinion. All the students in the school instantly exploded. Countless comments swarmed in, but Luo Qingxin didn't care at all, because their relationship now was not as simple as a teacher-student relationship. Chapter 2018. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 90%. Gong Mubai, who was sitting in the board meeting room, was very happy. Luo Qingxin could clearly feel the stiffness in Guanzhang's expression. It turned green and white, as well as a bit of shock. After all, he wasn't a fool. With a bit of intelligence, he could understand what Luo Qingxin meant. To be honest, when I saw that look of disbelief on your face, I felt a very good feeling in my heart. Luo Qingxin looked up and said, That's right, I had Xingxing help me make a post on the forum. Those who are interested can take a look. She paused for a second, and her lips curled into a faint smile as she said, After you see it, you'll know just how. Meddling in other people's business, this classmate named Guanzhang is. In an instant, everyone who was listening to the broadcast took out their cell phones and logged onto the school forum. The top post was titled, With My Surname, with your name. Opening the post, there were 2 red booklets that were their wedding photos. Below were several photos of the Gong and Luo families celebrating her birthday at the Empire Hotel. The 2 families looked very happy and harmonious. Then there were a few short postscripts. Regarding the post made by someone yesterday about the relationship between classmate Luo Qingxin and teacher Gong Mubai, the OP would like to say, It was the order of the parents, the words of the matchmaker, and the premise was that the man and woman had to sign a lifetime contract under the protection of the law. What does it have to do with you? Your family lives by the sea, and you care so much. The post attracted many people's attention. This time, there was no criticism, only praise. After all, no matter what, this was still someone else's family. They were a legal couple, so why should they be blamed? I love learning. I have something to say from the previous post. Could the OP be the guy from the radio station just now? A cloud in the sky. It must be. He probably can't stand seeing others live well. Living in a dark world every day, it really is disgusting. Burying love, AI. Perhaps he couldn't get what he wanted, so he turned evil. Old times that can't wait. The one above is 666. However, I also felt the same way. The front row envied the female lead. The male lead was too handsome. Luo Qingxin, who was standing at the broadcasting station, shrugged. She shook the phone in her hand and walked away with a victorious look on her face, leaving behind a shocked Guanzhang. How could this be? How could they be husband and wife? He did not believe it. He did not believe it. He did not believe it. That night, Guanzhang logged into the game and sent out a few messages. His words revealed his anger and mockery. Horn, son Prince Charming. No matter how I think about it, the game is still the best. Real life is so fake. Horn, son Prince Charming. Do you know? There's a teacher-student couple in our school. They're so shameless. Both of them are poor B** stars. They're despised by the students in our school. World, a little bear. Oh? The son that had been silent for a long time had a melon to eat? World, son Prince Charming. No melon, it just disgusts me. Everyone in our class especially looks down on this so-called teacher-student relationship. They feel ashamed when they see it. At this moment, Luo Qingshun was sitting in front of the computer. She was eating chocolate cake while watching Guanxiang distort right and wrong in the game. It seemed that he was delirious from the incident at school this morning. He ran to the game to write his own script and find a sense of existence. Chapter 2019. The world was very big, and some people would never meet in their lifetime. But the world was also very small, and some people were born to be nemesis. Luo Qingshun drank a few mouthfuls of milk tea and bought a set of horns in the mall. She decided to accompany Guanxiang to write the ending that he had imagined in his heart. Horn, Qingxia, a teacher-student relationship? Are you sure? At this juncture, Luo Qingshun used the horn to attack Guanxiang. Naturally, it completely angered him. At this moment, he was like a barrel of explosives, and Luo Qingshun ignited him very decisively. Horn, son Prince Charming. What does it have to do with you? You know nothing. Horn, lovely baby. Hubby, don't tell her. She just wants to get your attention. I've seen a lot of this kind of woman. It's really disgusting. Horn, son Prince Charming. Thank you, baby. I'm too lazy to tell her. Luo Qingshun, who was sitting in front of the computer, smiled and quickly typed a line of words on the keyboard. Horn, Qingxia. Guanxiang. Is lovely baby your wife? Or is darling baby your wife? It had to be said that Luo Qingshun's words made the originally silent world explode again. World, Luo Qinghuan, wow. Why does Qingxia know the name of son Prince Charming? Do they know each other in real life? World, chocolate dove. I'm concerned about the relationship between lovely baby and darling baby and son Prince Charming. Horn, lovely baby. What nonsense are you talking about? You're imagining things? The relationship between us sisters is very good. We've never been like some people, coveting other people's contracts. At present, Luo Qingshun didn't say a word even though the world horn was bloody, because she knew that someone would be unable to hold back and get on the horn one step faster than her. Horn, darling baby. Guanxiang? You're Guanxiang? Son Prince Charming? Horn, lovely baby. Darling, don't listen to that disgusting person's nonsense. How could she know the name of son Prince Charming? Horn, darling baby. Shut up. Did I ask you? Son Prince Charming is Guanxiang? Horn, son Prince Charming. Who do you think you are? Why are you threatening me? Isn't it just because she has me that you and Fairy don't like her? Sisters? Other than being jealous, what else can you do? I am Guanxiang, so what? Although he did not know how the person called Qingxia in the game knew his real name, at this moment, a raging fire was burning in the depths of his heart, and he wanted to spit it out whenever he saw someone. What's more, this person called Sweetheart actually made him contract her to shut up. This was even more intolerable. Horn, sweet baby. Guanxiang, do you know who I am? I'm your F***king girlfriend. As soon as Xia Tianxin said this, the world froze for 3 seconds. Then there was an uproar. World, snowflakes turn into frost when they fall to the ground, damn. I finally understood this melon. World, Hunter Dream Scholar. Come, let me explain to everyone. A certain cutie was the son's in-game contract, and a certain sweetheart was the son's real-life girlfriend. This relationship was really better than seeing it once. Horn, sweet baby, what's wrong? Why aren't you talking? Lovely, you shameless woman. Am I not good to you? You cheated on me in the game? Chapter 2020. Horn, sweetheart baby. I'm wrong? Hee. Do you know the truth of teacher-student romance? Shameless. Is it fun to be a mistress? Sweetheart, who was sitting in front of the computer, immediately sent a private message to the son Prince Charming. She only got one reply. Yes. At this moment, she felt that her world had collapsed. From the first day she played this game, she especially liked the son Prince Charming. His voice was gentle and his skills were good. She felt that he was the Prince Charming that was hard to meet in her life. However, before she could walk to his side, he already had a contract. However, she didn't give up. After they broke the contract, she mustered up the courage to confess and finally got together with the Prince Charming in her heart. She just didn't expect that everything was fake. Lauren, sweetheart, so you are all liars. I'm shameless? I'm a mistress? This woman called sweetheart. If you were good enough, would the son have found a contract in the game? Lauren, sweetheart baby, is the vixen in the right? A shameless person is invincible. Didn't you want to find a rich person to hug when you were crying why? What a pity. No one wants you. Looking at the two people who used to call themselves sisters openly quarreling on the horn. Looking at the other person called Fairy Baby silently changing her name. Looking at the son, Prince Charming, being scolded by the people in the world. There was no place for him to hide. Luo Qingshun said, very satisfied. DDD. A private message sounded. Luo Qingshun knew who it was without clicking. Private, Muyu. Is our daughter-in-law happy like this? Private Qing Xia. Happy. Haha, I'm about to laugh out loud. Private, Muyu. Since you're so happy, come out for a midnight snack. What kind of reason is that to eat a midnight snack when you're happy? No wonder fat people will always be fat. Because a big heart will make you fat. She didn't know that before she replied. Gong Mubai told her the truth in his heart. Private Muyu, I miss you. In fact, sometimes their Prince Charming was quite gentle when he was flirting with people. 9:30 in the evening, people came and went at the food stall. Luo Qingshun originally thought that someone of Gong Mubai's status would definitely take her to a particularly elegant restaurant and then book the whole place. She didn't expect it to be such a down-to-earth food stall. The original owner of this food stall had been here before, so there was nothing to complain about. Moreover, it was very close to the center of the city square, and one could see the fireworks by the river. Have you been here before? Luo Qingshun opened a bottle of beer, with a touch of Li Guang in her eyes. Just as she was about to take a sip to quench her thirst, the beer was snatched away by Gong Mubai and replaced with milk. This is suitable for you. His deep eyes narrowed slightly as his lips curled into a smile. Humph. Luo Qingshun snorted and said, it seems that the math teacher really thinks of me as a child. She could clearly feel Gong Mubai's brows furrowing slightly. It seemed like he really didn't like those 4 words. Are you happy to be mischievous again? I'm so happy. Who told you not to let me drink? I'm already an adult. Luo Qingshun rested her chin on her right hand as she looked at his handsome face and said, have you forgotten about the coming-of-age ceremony you held for me? Cough, cough. In the next second, Gong Mubai cleared his throat and said, in a math teacher's heart, you'll always be a child. Chapter 2021. She originally thought that a teacher-student relationship would be a hurdle in Gong Mubai's heart, but she didn't expect him to accept it so naturally. You're talking about that kind of relationship? Gong Mubai's mouth slightly raised. I like that kind of relationship. In fact, in his heart, whether it was a teacher-student relationship, husband and wife relationship, or a marriage contract in the game, he liked it all, as long as she was Luo Qingshun. Even if he couldn't completely accept a relationship in the past, he could accept it now, as long as it was her. Luo Qingshun looked at his smiling face and blinked. Have you never seen the world? If I said that it didn't exist the first time I saw you, would you believe me? Gong Mubai drank a mouthful of beer and said with a faint pampering look in his eyes, maybe it's not love at first sight, but I know that I will definitely care about it. At that time, when he first saw her name in the WeChat group, he was actually very surprised. Now that he thought about it, there were no words that could describe his mood at that time. It could be said that he was half happy and half sad. She was happy, but she was also sad. Luo Qingshun listened to Gong Mubai's words, and her heart was inexplicably moved. It felt like a little flirtatious words of love, but in fact, it expressed all the emotions in Gong Mubai's heart at that time. Maybe he didn't fall in love with her at first sight, but he knew that he would definitely fall in love with her in the future. This was most likely what Gong Mubai wanted to express. Wow, so beautiful. Look at the skyscraper across the street. What the hell? Do you want to propose to me? In just a moment, The originally dark surroundings were instantly lit up by the lights on the sea. The sky, full of fireworks, illuminated the silent night. In the next second, Luo Qingshun looked in the direction of the skyscraper. There was a short line of words written on it. Even if you are my student, I will still ignore the words of the world and use the rest of my life to keep my promise to you. The glittering words stayed on the screen for a full minute, and then it went to the next page. There was an even simpler line of words. Marry me, okay? Will you marry me? He knelt down on one knee in front of the crowded street. His right hand was holding a pink diamond gift box, and his eyes were as deep as water. It turned out that it wasn't just a simple supper. It turned out that it wasn't as simple as missing her. It turned out that this was a carefully planned marriage proposal. At this moment, at the center of the fireworks, at the center of attention, there was a thunderous round of applause and laughter all around. He did not choose a high-end restaurant to propose to her. Instead, he chose a noisy street. Luo Qingqin knew in her heart why he did this. It was because he had never been afraid of their relationship, not even the slightest hesitation. He did not need to hide. He could tell the whole world that his student was his wife. That was why he had chosen this place to propose to her. All right, she nodded lightly, a smile on her face that was difficult to conceal. He slowly put the dazzling diamond ring on her ring finger. He raised his right hand and patted her head lovingly. It's just that. In the next second, she took a step forward and whispered softly at the side of his ear, "Teacher, are you happy to be so mischievous? I'm very happy with you." In the next second, his right hand suddenly pulled her into his embrace, and he said, "Hurry up and take the college entrance exams, grow up quickly, and become husband and wife." Haha, forget it. Our family's Ching is still a child. Chapter 2022. After collecting the marriage certificate and proposing, everything was ready, but it was not their wedding. It was the college entrance examination. Of course, there were some interludes before the college entrance examination from the supporting male and female characters in this dimension. Guan Ziang and Xia Tianxin. Guan Ziang took 3 days off from home to sell his account online. It was a pity that his account had long become a joke in light years. No matter how low the price was, no one wanted to buy it. This melon also became the biggest in the history of Heavenly Mandate. The in-game contract and real-life girlfriend turned out to be sisters. She had heard from a certain fairy that the two of them would flaunt their man's voice every day, showing off how pleasant and suave their man's voice was. Little did they know that the man they were talking about was actually the same person. 3 days later, when Guan Zhang returned to Forget Chuan High School, he was stopped by the security guard at the door. Gong Mubai had already wrapped up the matter perfectly and fired him in the name of the board of directors. His girlfriend, Xia Tianxin, had already been fired 3 days ago, leaving no room for negotiation. It had to be said that from this matter, Gong Mubai was indeed not quite what he looked like. He was not a talented and elegant gentleman, but a black-bellied master. Thinking about it, if Gong Mubai was an elegant gentleman in snow-white clothes, he would play a mage like Yushu in Heavenly Mandate. Thousands of snow-white mountains, not a blade of light carried by a long sword. This seemed to prove his hidden personality. The book said that such a person could not be offended in real life, because they would definitely die in an ugly manner, such as Guan Ziang and Xia Tianxin. After all, Gong Mubai could easily settle the matter of expulsion with a groundless charge. A month later, before the college entrance examination, Xingxing couldn't sleep all night. The next day, she came to the examination room with dark circles under her eyes. She looked at her with a bitter expression and said, "Qing, my mathematics depends on your master. If he can guess the questions correctly, my college dream will still exist. Otherwise, it will all be for naught." "Xing, you still want to cram for the college entrance examination?" Luo Qingshun imitated her tone and sighed. After all, she was very clear about her master's ability to guess questions. Even if it wasn't 100%, it was at least 80%. You. Chung Xingxing patted his chest and said, "I feel like I'm starting to feel dizzy now. Do your best. I'll wait for you at Wang Chuan University. The score is a little high." Chung Xingxing narrowed his eyes and said, "It's just a little high for me. Shouldn't you go to Harvard or something like that?" Guru said that he will be teaching at Wangchuan University for the next year. I still want him to teach. Luo Qingchun smiled, her eyes filled with unconcealable happiness. She always felt that Gong Mubai looked especially good when he was lecturing on stage. It was said that concentration made one appear charming. This must be the truth. F***CK. You still want to be his student? Chung Xingxing smiled and said, "Haha, interesting, interesting. With such a relationship, if it were anyone else, they would definitely try their best to hide it. You guys, on the other hand, are trying your best to show it off. Perhaps this is what I admire the most about the Almighty." Luo Qingchun looked at Gong Mubai, who was slowly walking over from not far away. She smiled faintly and said, "He is everything that I like. That kind of love, regardless of status, regardless of the world, always made people feel especially touched." Chapter 2023. Perhaps Gong Mubai didn't know, but when he slowly walked towards her, he instantly became the center of attention. Look, look, it's the male and female lead of the Forum Post. What are you gossiping about? That's their family matter. I'm just envious. Teacher Gong is so handsome. He took our class. He's really handsome. Haha. He even accompanied his wife during the exam. He's really good. Listening to the gossip of the melon-eating crowd, although it wasn't anything unpleasant, it still made her feel embarrassed. "Did you bring everything?" He stood in front of her, and his beautiful eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. It was as if he was looking at a treasure as he looked at her. "I brought everything." She nodded, her face obedient. Gong Mubai faintly replied. Then his arm suddenly pulled her into his embrace. Wow! The surrounding crowd cheered. She could clearly feel her cheeks blush. This blush quickly spread to her ears. "Gong Mubai, take the exam well. You'll grow up after the exam." His tone was inexplicably gentle, like a warm current flowing through her blood vessels, spreading to her heart. She slightly nodded, looked into his deep eyes, and seriously said, "I will walk in your direction. The problem is..." He gently smiled, his eyes filled with love as he looked at her, and said, "I've always been by your side." The night breeze blew. The leaves of the camphor tree slowly fell. She pursed her lips into a smile, her face filled with happiness. The surrounding crowd thunderously applauded, giving their blessings to this crazy teacher-student love. After the exam ended, because Gong Mubai's questions were 90% accurate, Chung Xingxing barely managed to pass Wangchuan University's admission score. Luo Qingchun directly entered the university with a high score and even entered the top 10. The most important lesson of life was over, and she welcomed the second lesson of life. July 7th, the wedding dress landed. There were many people who came to attend their wedding, including the students of the third-year Class 1 and the beautiful homeroom teacher, Su Wei. At the wedding, she drank 2 more glasses and said regretfully, "Why didn't I seize the opportunity and let my student be 1 step ahead of me?" "Teacher Su, you're wrong." Chung Xingxing shook his head and said, "Teacher Su has never had a chance. You brat, don't think that I can't deal with you after graduation." Su Wei put her hands on her hips and pretended to be angry. "Why don't I have a chance?" "Because..." Chung Xingxing pursed his lips and smiled. Actually, Teacher Gong and Qingchun didn't meet in school. They met in the game. "What?" Su Wei said in disbelief. "What game?" "Heavenly Mandate." Luo Qingchun held Gong Mubai's hand as they walked past Su Wei. She did not forget to answer her question. This was really a magical game. All the unexpected encounters happened here. "Actually, I've been looking for an opportunity." When they were exchanging rings, Gong Mubai slowly whispered in her ear, "Let by E be like before, and Mu you become one person." "What person?" She looked up, and a trace of doubt flashed through her eyes. In the next second, he sealed it with a kiss and said, "Your contract." She chuckled. He looked at her dotingly. The person he thought he couldn't get close to in the game. The person he thought he couldn't be together with in real life. Now, she was his wife. Chapter 2024. On the road to the future, I will share all the happiness with you, and I will taste all the pain before you. Gong Mubai in my life, I didn't have any worries growing up. Maybe it was because of my personality, but I didn't like to go to bars or nightclubs like my friends. I like to play games more. Once upon a time, a close friend of mine told me that someone like me would be perfect for online dating. I couldn't help but nod. You're right. The online world is often more real than the real world. The emotions that people don't dare to express in real life can be fully expressed online. I've seen a lot of people who live in a dozen square meter rented apartment in real life and eat instant noodles for every meal. But they can use their credit card to spend thousands or even tens of thousands in the game, letting others call them boss, and enjoy the vanity that they can't get in real life. To be honest, I don't discriminate against people like that. Rather, I feel that this is what they desire the most. They have the girls in the game fighting over them, and they get something they can't get in real life. It's probably because of this that I like online games. I like to see all the faces in the game as an outsider. Until one time, I met Luo Qingshun when I was using my Smurf account to collect things. For the first time, I felt that in this game, there were other things besides money and wealth. She sent me an item that was worth over $1,000 without using a paid mail. The moment I received the mail, I was stunned for a moment and remembered her name. Qingxia, a very nice name. I waited for her for 3 days. I thought she would ask me for money, but she didn't. She almost completely forgot about it. Or maybe she didn't care about it at all. I felt that it was incredible. She was like a clear stream in this muddy game, different from the rest. Later, I contacted her and asked her if she needed a disciple. She didn't seem to care and didn't want to pay attention to me. She only said a few words, then signed a contract with her and went to do a quest. When I saw the name of her contract, I denied my own inference. Perhaps she was the same as many people in this game and wasn't different. After I returned the money to her, I didn't contact her again. Occasionally, I heard people say that her equipment was made by her, but I couldn't help but refute. A person who doesn't care about something worth over $1,000 shouldn't need equipment made by others. It turned out that my thoughts were correct, because her battle strength increased very quickly, and her contract didn't increase as quickly as her battle strength. I originally thought that we were just strangers in this game, and we wouldn't have a second encounter. Little did they know that on a quiet night, she, a person who had never been on the bugle horn, actually went on the bugle horn and planted the flag to fight the deletion battle. I don't know why, but I always felt that she gave me the feeling of a different person. Although we never met again, I would occasionally hear from my friends that she was a nanny with bad skills. Whether it was on the battlefield or in an instance dungeon, his skills were not very good. However, she had actually issued a challenge to a healer who was weaker than her in terms of combat power. However, many players in the world believe that it was impossible for her to defeat the healer. Chapter 2025. But I would never have guessed that I wasn't just betting on the outcome of the match, but also on her. At the end of Sulan Bridge, countless people were watching the account deletion battle. She actually used less than a minute to pin her opponent to the ground. During this time, her opponent didn't even have the strength to resist. Every skill she used was perfect. It was like a god's control. The world was in an uproar. Even her opponent didn't think that he would be defeated like this. At that moment, I suddenly felt an inexplicable desire to get to know her again. Afterwards, she fought a few more battles. No matter what the opponent's job was or how strong they were, she never lost again. At that time, Luo Qingshun was so dazzling. She was probably still the same Luo Qingshun that stood out from the masses. That night, she terminated her contract with the son, Prince Charming, at the place where they were contracted and left the guild. I had always been paying attention to her movements. In fact, I was very nervous. I inexplicably hoped that her name would appear in the guild, because in the server of light years, the only guild that could fight against the world was Drunken Dream Flower Wine. I hoped that she would come. It was even a kind of fervent hope. Probably no one would know how excited I was when her name appeared in Drunken Dream. I had never felt this kind of emotion before in my life. It could be called nervousness, but nervousness was useless, because other than calling her master using White Robe's account, I couldn't use Mu Yu's account to talk to her. I needed a reason to add her as a friend and get her WeChat. At that moment, I had a flash of inspiration. I suddenly remembered that she had dug out a heroic spirit desolate last night. Sometimes, buying and selling items was the best way to get close to someone without making them suspicious. Desolate's market price was 9,000 to 10,000 renminbi. She didn't deliberately raise the price because I was a battle god. Because of this, I naturally got her WeChat. But what I didn't expect was that our relationship wasn't as simple as a business relationship in the game. Really, it turned out that we also interacted in real life. And I was about to become her math teacher. At that time, I thought that this was an opportunity given to me by the heavens. If I didn't grasp it and miss it, then I deserved it. However, this opportunity came when she was sick. He felt an inexplicable sense of annoyance in his heart. Food poisoning was a serious matter, but she was so muddle-headed. For a moment, I felt that she was a little immature in real life. It was different from her fearless solo self in the game. Actually, at that time, I was already contracted to her. When I brought her to the contracted land, I was putting all my eggs in one basket and giving it my all, because I don't like those who are jealous of her. In my eyes, no one in this game is worthy of her. Well, except for me. I thought she didn't know that I was her teacher, but I didn't expect her to know before me. Then I thought it was just as well. This was something that had to be made clear. She knew and was still willing to be my contracted partner, which meant that I still had a chance. However, this girl was sometimes very disobedient. For example, if you were sick, you would still come up to fight in the territory war. Although I knew that she was healing me so that Drunken Dream could defend Central State. Chapter 2026. It was probably because it was getting harder and harder to control the emotions in my heart, or because my feelings for her were getting deeper and deeper. I couldn't control my emotions. I couldn't even wait for her college entrance exam. I couldn't wait for her to graduate before I wanted to take her to see my parents. I only found out after a phone call that her father and my father were business partners. I suddenly felt that the feeling of being well-matched in terms of social status was so good, I could hold her hand and take her to see my parents. Also, her parents. Along the way, she kept muttering if her clothes were too childish, if her identity was too childish. I secretly laughed in my heart. She thought I was taking her to see my friends, but that wasn't the case. The moment the door opened, I saw the shock and disbelief in her eyes. Actually, I knew that I didn't take her feelings into consideration, but I really couldn't help but want to keep her by my side. When I saw her troubled expression, I felt an inexplicable sense of loss. I was afraid that she would be unhappy, and even more afraid that she would refuse. I didn't expect that she would look at me with a smile and agree like a child. Looking at her smile, I really wanted to hold her in my arms, but she was still a child. Even if we were engaged and registered, she was still a child in my eyes. A child that could only be looked at from afar, but not. What I didn't expect was that our relationship would be exposed on the school forum by someone with ulterior motives. Between the lines, it was a criticism from the moral high ground. There was also some unwillingness and hatred. For a math teacher, it was easy to use a hacker program to find out who the other party was. Guan Ziyang, the love rival that once expressed goodwill to her in front of me? No, maybe he wasn't even a love rival. After all, he wasn't handsome enough. She told me in the game that she would take care of this matter. I originally wanted to use my family's power to expel Guan Zhang, but I decided to trust my wife and let her do what she wanted. She didn't disappoint. She seemed to be even more ruthless than me. Not only did she tell everyone that she and I were legally husband and wife in front of the entire school, she also revealed Guan Ziyang's matters in Heavenly Mandate. I watched the entire process. Looking at my wife's radiant appearance, I felt very proud. Occasionally, some friends would come to me and ask me if it was just a whim or something new. They always thought that a teacher-student relationship was not a good thing. However, I didn't think so. I had more experience than her, so I could definitely help her on her path in the future. Sometimes student and teacher were just a form of address. It had nothing to do with love. There were no taboos in this world. It was just that everyone had different viewpoints and opinions. Over time, it became a taboo. As for me, I love her without fear of taboos. After the college entrance exam, she successfully entered Wang Chuan University. On the first day of school, there were bold boys who confessed to her. I carefully recorded the names of these boys in my notebook. No matter how good their grades are or how high their attendance is, I can make them fail. Yes, that was how willful he was. She always said, "Math teacher, you're not being willful, you're being two-faced." I thought about it, and it seemed to be true. Actually, there was something that he had always wanted to say to her, but he hadn't found the right time. Then let's talk here. Wife, you're the best in the world. If there's someone better than you, then I'll pretend I didn't see it. Chapter 2027. Later on, at Wang Chuan University, a handsome and confident advanced mathematics teacher was lecturing on the podium, and the seats below were filled with students. 80% of them were female classmates who came to see her, and 20% were male classmates who came to see his wife. There were no exceptions. He always liked to call out those male students who were secretly looking at his wife in class, and the questions he asked were all very harsh. Until one day, a boy in a bright red shirt and dyed blonde hair blushed and said to him, "Teacher, I know Qingxian is your wife. I'm really not here to see her. I'm here to see you." At this point, the whole class was in an uproar. Due to Mr. Gong and Mrs. Gong keeping a low profile and the fact that university was different from high school, not everything was so well informed. Not everyone knew that they were husband and wife, but once the boy said it, everyone knew. Luo Qingxian blushed instantly and covered her forehead with her right hand. Gong Mubai stood on the stage with an unconcealable smile on his face. In fact, he was only happy when everyone knew about it. In this way, he wouldn't have to threaten the boys who tried to get close to his wife by failing her exams. This was definitely a good thing. You're very intelligent. Gong Mubai's brows twitched slightly. But I'm a man with a family, so I don't have to like you. Teacher, since that's the case, can you not drop me this year? I've been dropped by you for 3 years. Every year, I get full marks and take makeup exams every year. The golden-haired boy said with a sad face. My mom thinks that I might be possessed, so she made me wear red to ward off evil spirits. Ha 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 ha. Everyone burst into laughter. A few boys who had the same experience chimed in. Teacher, we really don't dare to covet the campus belle. After I failed once, I immediately found a girlfriend so that I wouldn't fail advanced mathematics. Me too. Now, whenever I see Qingxian, no, whenever I see Mistress, I take a detour. I'm afraid that I'll fail even if I get full marks. Teacher, you two are so compatible. Gong Mu Bai, who was standing on the stage, nodded his head in satisfaction. From now on, the tragedy of Wang Chuan University failing a subject was over. Of course, the relationship between Gong Mu Bai and Luo Qingxian was exposed. Originally, people who didn't know her would call her Miss Campus Belle when they passed by her. Now they all called her Madam. This form of address accompanied her for a very long time, until she graduated, until she started working, until they both retired and enjoyed their old age. In the beginning, she was embarrassed, but in the end, when she heard these 2 words, she felt warmth in her heart. In this lifetime, she had stayed by Gong Mu Bai's side and had never suffered any grievances, nor had she experienced any storms. In the peaceful years, they continued to write their teacher-student love. When he opened his eyes again, he was in the primal chaos space. Welcome back, host. The following is a summary of the data for this mission. Please read it carefully. Name, Luo Qingxian Plane Space. Master, Seeking Ascension, Mission Completion Rate. 100%. There are currently 5 items in the express storage. 4/5 Exquisite Ring. 9-section Moon Whip. Phoenix Dance Sword. Universal Medicine Box. Permanent Ability. Space and Time Freeze LV 4 Permanent Ability. Teleportation LV 2 Exchange Points. 9,000 base points. 40. Host. The 34th mission panel is below. In the next second, the image in the bronze mirror changed. Mission level A. Completed experience gained. 500. Female lead. Luo Qingxian male lead. Feng Qincha supporting female lead. Lan Lingqian supporting male lead. Rong Muling mission content. Return to 1 month before the female lead died and obtain the love of the male lead. Chapter 2028. As the memories seeped into her mind bit by bit, She could feel her eyes reddening unconsciously. This was probably a sad story. In a flourishing Chong and city, it was a story about the birth of obsession. In this story, no one seemed to be able to get what they wanted. They were all for selfish love, constantly hurting others. And the one who was hurt the most was the original host. Or it could be said that in this story, the original host was not like the female lead at all. She was a pitiful person that no one liked and no one loved. The original host was the daughter of the court's great scholar. She had been Minister Luo's favorite since she was young. She was a daughter of a famous family and was educated. The supporting male lead, Rong Mu-ling, was the son of the Minister of Revenue. He was handsome and elegant. The supporting female lead, Lan Lingqian, was a girl that the Minister of Revenue's Madame Rongsheng had bought from a brothel. She had lived in the Rong family since she was 10. Madame Rong did not have a daughter. Lan Lingqian could be considered a young miss in the Rong family. The servants were polite to her, and Rong Mu-ling was very good to her. However, there was always a knot in her heart. This knot became the reason why she did not care about anything later. She and Rong Mu-ling had always been childhood friends. Rong Mu-ling's feelings for her had deepened over the years. If the two were in love, it would be a good story for the Rong family. However, Lan Lingqian already had someone in her heart when she was 10. That year, the Lan family was chased by their enemies. In one night, the Lan manor was filled with flames. Everyone died under the blades of their enemies. Only Lan Lingqian crawled out of the dog hole. She kept running until she bumped into a warm embrace. She saw a youth wearing a dark black robe. His hair was tied up with a bamboo hairpin. There was a woodsy scent on his body that was different from the orchid musk. The evening clouds in the sky faded, and the sky was clear. His eyes moved slightly. They were as cold as the stars. He had a noble demeanor, as if he was the king of the world. The enemies had caught up at this moment, but the moment they saw the youth, they all knelt down. Lan Lingqian would never forget that day. The youth stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and his voice was as cold as frost. He only said one word, "Scram." He looked like he was only 15 or 16 years old, but he gave off such a cold feeling. The people who had annihilated her entire family were now scrambling and crawling away before his eyes. The young man didn't say another word as he turned around and left. However, his appearance had been firmly engraved in her mind and could not be erased. She wanted to know who that young man was, but she didn't have the chance. It wasn't until the 5th time she entered the Rong estate that she saw him again at a grand banquet in the imperial palace. Back then, His Highness the Crown Prince, Feng Qianche. Lan Lingqian was a very persistent person. If she liked someone, she would like him forever. The emptiness in her heart had long been filled by Feng Qianche, who had saved her when she was 10 years old. No matter how good Rong Mu-ling was to her, she could not accept it. Actually, she knew, but she couldn't love him. At that banquet, her rainbow dress dance was graceful, but it was a pity that she did not receive Feng Qianche's attention. Instead, she received the attention of the empress. The current empress was not Feng Qianche's birth mother. His birth mother had died on the day he was born, but this empress had good eyesight. At that banquet, she had taken a fancy to Lan Lingqian. From her eyes, she could see that she coveted the crown prince, Feng Qianche. Chapter 2029. After the banquet, the empress had Lan Lingqian stay in the palace for a few days. She directly exposed Lan Lingqian's thoughts and told her that she could help her. However, if Lan Lingqian became the crown princess in the future, she could not forget her kindness. For Feng Qianche, Lan Lingqian agreed. Other than the emperor, there were 3 powers in the Feng dynasty. Grand Scholar Luo's son, Minister of Revenue Rong Lin, and the Crown Prince Feng Qianche. Then if they wanted Feng Qianche's position as Crown Prince to not be threatened, the Luo and Rong families could not work together. The Empress told her that if she could drive a wedge between the Luo and Rong families for Feng Qianche, she would receive the Crown Prince's gratitude and pity. She believed. However, it was not an easy thing to cause a rift between the Luo and Rong families who had a deep friendship, until the Luo manor's Luo Qingshun reached her 10th year. The Luo and Rong families decided to form a marriage alliance. On one hand, they wanted to strengthen their power, and on the other hand, they wanted to know the character of the other side's child. The elders of the two families thought that Rong Mu Ling and Luo Qingshun would be happy together. The previous host also thought so. When the previous host was young, she had seen Rong Mu Ling a few times. The two families were old friends, so they were naturally close. She did not fall in love with Rong Mu Ling at first sight. She went from envying Lan Lingqian to caring about Rong Mu Ling. Maybe it was because Rong Mu Ling was too good to Lan Lingqian. When the two families ate, he would always help Lan Lingqian scoop out the green onions in the soup, peel the shrimp shells for her, and put the desserts she liked in front of her. She envied Lan Lingqian and admired Rong Mu Ling very much. When she reached her 10th year, she had asked her mother why Rong Mu Ling did not take Lan Lingqian as his wife. Her mother combed her hair as she said, "Because she is his little sister." The previous host believed her mother's words. In that moment, she seemed to like Rong Mu Ling even more. Because he was so good to his little sister, he would definitely be good to his wife. That night, the previous host was so happy that she could not sleep. When a mother saw how happy her daughter was, she felt a little worried. In fact, she had lied to her daughter. The reason why Rong Mu Ling did not marry Lan Lingqian was not because Lan Lingqian was his younger sister, but because Lan Lingqian rejected his feelings. Rong Mu Ling could not obtain the person he loved, and in order to consolidate the Rong family's power in the imperial court, he had no choice but to marry the Luo family's daughter as his wife. That day, the entire Rong mansion was hung with red silk, and the sound of celebration spread throughout Chang'an. She sat nervously in the red sedan, covered with a bridal veil, her heart full of joy. But this time of joy was too short. On the wedding night, Rong Mu Ling did not even step into the room. Instead, he was in the study, hungover. In his daze, he called out the name of another woman, Lan Lingqian. To him, Lan Lingqian was special. He would never forget that day at the entrance of the brothel, when she raised her stubborn eyes. She was different from other women. She was not a noble lady, nor was she weak. She always had a stubbornness in her bones that constantly attracted him. He always thought that when they grew up, she would definitely be his wife. But he did not know that she told him that she already had someone else in her heart. "Who was that person?" he asked. "Someone from the imperial palace." She replied. He did not ask anymore, because when he saw her eyes, he knew that she was telling the truth. Chapter 2030. After the previous host married Rong Mu Ling, he treated her with respect. Indifference had already become normal, but due to the relationship between the Rong and Luo families, he could not casually find an excuse to divorce her. However, in these 3 years, he had never entered her room, not to mention being intimate. Even when they passed each other, their sleeves would touch and Rong Mu Ling would quickly avoid it. The previous host did not know what she had done wrong. She only knew that after marrying into the Rong family, she would dress up day and night, but she had never received Rong Mu Ling's attention. She did not understand. If he did not love her, why did he marry her? When she was in the Luo family, she was the apple of her parents' eye. Since she was young, they had never reprimanded her. But now that she had married out, she had experienced the fickleness of human nature. Although the maidservants in the manor were respectful to her, they knew that she was an unfavored madam and would often gossip behind her back. She had heard a lot, but she had become numb. The previous host loved peach blossoms, but the Rong family's residence was filled with pear blossoms. When autumn came, the ground would be filled with pear blossoms, and the scenery would be very beautiful. At first, she did not understand why the Rong family only planted pear trees and not other trees. Later, she inadvertently heard a servant mention it. Only then did she know that young Miss Lan, who used to live in the Rong family, liked pear blossoms the most. It turned out that he was thinking of her. 3 years ago, Lan Lingqian had caught the eye of the Empress. Her graceful raiment dance had given her a chance to stay in the palace. Lady Rong wanted to find a reason to refuse, but she never thought that Lan Lingqian would directly kneel down to thank her. Since it was like this, Lady Rong could not say anything. Lan Lingxian stayed in the palace for 3 years like this, doing many shameful things for the empress. But the number of times she saw His Highness the Crown Prince could be counted. It was rumored that Feng Qianche's personality was very strange. He was cold, overbearing, and cruel. In the 3rd year after entering the palace, the Rong and Luo families' power continued to expand. The 8th prince, who was supported by the Rong family, was restless. At this time, Lan Lingxian received an ultimate mission from the empress: return to Rong Muling's side and split the relationship between the Luo and Rong families. In the eyes of her parents, the original owners' 3 years of forbearance had already made their hearts ache. This timing was the best opportunity for him to do so. When Lan Lingxian appeared in front of Rong Muling again, his deathly, still eyes lit up. He asked, "Why are you back?" She replied, "Living in the palace for 3 years made me think of every little thing that happened by your side. I still want to stay by your side more." At that moment, Rong Muling did not hesitate to embrace her, his voice trembling as he said, "It's good that you're back." Due to Lan Lingqian's special status, when she married into the Rong family, Madame Rong did not agree. There was always a faint worry in his heart, but Rong Muling ignored everything and brought her into the side room. Although he couldn't give her the status of the official wife, in Rong Muling's heart, he only had one wife. That was Lan Lingqian, who had returned to his side. When the original owner found out about this, her heart ached, but there was nothing she could do. Originally, being the wife of the side room was a must. She had to serve her tea on the 2nd day of the wedding, but after she dressed up, Lan Lingqian did not come. Her personal maid told her that Rong Muling did not let her. What a mocking sentence. She sat in front of the bronze mirror like a fool and slowly took off the jewelry on her body. Chapter 2031. After Lan Lingqian married into the Rong family, the smile on Rong Muling's face increased. Sometimes, when he brushed past her, she could no longer avoid him. Instead, she would nod at him and ask him a few questions. The previous host would always be happy because of a few words from him. Sometimes, she would even think that if he said a few more words to her every day, she would already be satisfied. In the Rong family, Rong Muling could give 99% of his love to Lan Lingqian. He only needed to leave 1% for her. Unfortunately, the truth was she didn't even have 1%. Lan Lingqian became pregnant the 2nd month after marrying Rong Muling. Rong Muling was overjoyed and set up a banquet to welcome his first child. At that moment, the previous host sat on the high seat, drinking her favorite drunk, peach blossom cup after cup. Cold tears fell uncontrollably, drenching her red makeup. She watched as Rong Muling whispered gently into Lan Lingqian's ear. From time to time, he would caress her stomach, and from time to time, he would use his slender fingers to gently brush the hair on her forehead. His eyes were filled with affection. The previous host was very envious, but she couldn't do anything. She was an outsider who had never entered Rong Muling's life. Once upon a time, she had thought of leaving like this, leaving the Rong family and going to a barren mountain filled with peach blossoms. Occasionally, she would brew some wine and drink a cup of drunk peach blossom, but she was still unwilling to leave Rong Muling's side. Even if she was only looking at him from afar, even if his sweet words and feelings did not belong to her, she was also willing to stay by his side, guarding a pot of peach blossoms in an empty room. It was a pity that the more you took a step back in this world, the more others would take a step forward. Even if you only looked at them from afar and never got close, those with intentions would not let you go. In their eyes, you were just cannon fodder, just a chess piece. When Lan Lingqian was 3 months pregnant, the Rong family inexplicably caught on fire. An entire pear tree turned into bubbles. The servants were all discussing that this fire might be related to the original owner, because they had seen the original owner go to the pear garden alone that night. Rong Muling was a little angry. After all, it was Lan Lingqian's favorite pear blossoms. Now that they were all burned, he was naturally unhappy. Afterwards, he ordered that before the pear garden was rebuilt, no other pots or bouquets could appear in the Rong estate. The pot of peach blossoms that originally belonged to the original owner was taken away by the servants. At that time, the concubines in the manor told her that since she had decided not to fight for anything, she should just forget about a mere pot of peach blossoms. The concubine mother looked at her tearful face and felt sorry for her. In the end, with trembling hands, the original owner handed over the peach blossom that had been planted for 3 years. With a bang, the butler smashed it to pieces outside the door. Some pain could reach the heart through the layers of blood. However, she did not know that the real pain had yet to come. When Lan Lingxian was 6 months pregnant, Rong Mu Ling called the original owner to her room when he was on a business trip. That was originally Rong Mu Ling's room, the largest room in the entire Rong estate. The faint scent of sandalwood filled the air, and the surroundings were brightly lit. Lan Lingxian sat on the soft couch, looking at her with a faint smile. She called her older sister and invited her to drink tea. There were many traces of Rong Mu Ling in the room. The brush and ink on the desk, the clothes hanging on the door curtain. Chapter 2032. Lan Lingxian was pregnant for 6 months and could not sleep with him, but he was willing to stay by her side. Other than work, he would not leave her side. She envied Lan Lingxian, envied that she could obtain Rong Mu Ling's love, envied that a woman could have such a happy life. If it was her, even if she died a few years later, she would be willing. It was a pity that Lan Lingxian did not think so. She had her obsession, she had her goal, and she had things she wanted to do. After she left that day, Lan Lingxian had a miscarriage. Miscarriage while pregnant was a very dangerous thing, but for the obsession in her heart, she did it. The only suspect was the previous host, because only the previous host went to Lan Lingxian's room that day. When Rong Mu Ling rushed back, Lan Lingxian was lying on the bed with a pale face. She touched her stomach and cried, "I'm sorry, I didn't protect our child." He immediately locked the previous host in the firewood room and searched her room. The previous host liked to paint, and there were many paintings in the room. There was only one person in the painting, Rong Mu Ling. The housekeeper found an unknown powder in the painting. After the doctor confirmed it, it was medicine for miscarriage. The husband and wife who treated each other respectfully for 3 years finally broke apart on this day. Rong Mu Ling wrote a divorce letter for the previous host without another word and kicked her out of the Rong manor. The previous host held the divorce letter and knelt in front of him, saying, it's not me, it's really not me. If you don't scram, you will stay in the firewood room forever until you die." Rong Mu Ling's tone was very cold, and his bloodshot eyes were filled with killing intent. This was the last thing Rong Mu Ling said to her. Even before she died, his cold eyes appeared in front of her eyes. It was so painful that she could not breathe. She stayed in the firewood room for a month and was almost under house arrest. Occasionally, someone would bring her food, and occasionally not. In this month, she thought a lot. From meeting Rong Mu Ling to marrying him to today. Actually, she regretted it. If she hadn't married Rong Mu Ling in this life, perhaps she would have been able to meet a man who truly treated her well. She didn't need glory and wealth. She only needed to live an ordinary life. To her, it was also a gift. Unfortunately, life couldn't be restarted. That night, she took advantage of the dead of night to jump into the lake in the backyard with the divorce papers. The bone-chilling water stimulated her nerves. She imagined that peach blossoms would fill the sky and appear in the Rong estate. She drank a cup of wine and smiled faintly. Just like this, she awakened the bronze mirror in the chaotic space with all her thoughts. In the original owner's world, after her death, the Rong and Luo families completely broke off their relationship and fought openly and covertly. The crown prince was the most powerful family, and the empress had achieved her goal. She was going to sit back and reap the benefits. Now, when the story rewound back to the 1 minute before the original owner died. Wait a minute, 1 minute? The memories were accepted very quickly, and the suffocating feelings spread very quickly. Luo Qingchun could clearly feel the cold lake water stimulating her nerves. She kicked her legs and quickly swam to the shore. Fortunately, her martial arts were excellent. Swimming was not a difficult thing for her. However, the place where she went ashore was no longer the Rong estate, but a very barren place. System, where is this? The lake in the Rong Estate's backyard leads to the south of the city. Host is very good at swimming. Luo Qingxun climbed ashore and shook her hands. Just as she was about to wring her clothes dry to avoid catching a cold, a ray of light flashed in front of her eyes and a cold sword pressed against her neck. Chapter 2033. Who is it? The youth's voice was very cold. That kind of bone-chilling coldness entered her ears. MMP. She had almost drowned and had finally reached the shore with great difficulty. But now she had fallen into an even more terrible danger. It couldn't be that this plane of hers was going to end like this, right? Her feet moved slightly, and she could hear a crisp and melodious ringing sound. Cough, cough. Luo Qingxun cleared her throat and said, "Hero, I'm just passing by. You do what you need to do. I'll go that way." As her voice fell, Luo Qingxun swallowed her saliva and planned to walk to the side. The sword once again approached her neck and said, "You stepped on my bell and broke it." Bell? Luo Qingxun glanced at it from the corner of her eyes. It seemed to be a dark yellow copper bell. "I stepped on it." Her eyebrows trembled slightly. "It might not have broken. If it was broken, your life would have ended here today." The youth raised his eyebrows and sized up the girl in front of him. Her body was dripping wet, her hair was disheveled, and her back looked somewhat inexplicably desolate. "Explain your sister." "Hero, you still have to take this sword away. Let me bend down and pick it up." Luo Qingxun bit her lip and said, "Your martial arts are so high, a girl like me can't escape." In the next second, the sword left her neck and the youth's cold voice slowly came out. "Pick it up. Pick up your sister." The moment she bent down, she dodged to the side with a small step. Taking advantage of the dark night, she took out the Phoenix dance sword from her portable space. Turning around, she raised her eyebrows and said, "What kind of sneak attack is a hero to look good? A frontal." Before the word frontal could leave her mouth, a face that looked like it was carved from jade entered her eyes. A pair of rarely seen black eyes flashed with a dazzling light. Just by standing there casually, it carried a kind of noble demeanor. This face, where had she seen it before? The other party was clearly stunned. His beautiful eyes slightly narrowed, and his deep eyes flashed with a trace of probing. In the next second, Luo Qingxun suddenly remembered where she had seen this face before. In the memories of the original owner, this face had appeared before. Feng Qianxie. The moment she cried out in surprise, she immediately covered her mouth. She really had the halo of a female lead, meeting the male lead as soon as she arrived. It was a pity that their relationship was a bit tense. In the original owner's world, if she had not died and swam over, she would have seen the male lead. What's so great? She was already dead. She suffered grievances. I'll take it back for her. Looks like we can't leave you alive. In a flash, Feng Qianxie raised his eyebrows and attacked her with his sword. As Qianxie's attack. Luo Qingxun had experienced many immortal worlds, so she could use her Phoenix dance sword to perfection. Qianxie, Qian Qianxie, Qian Qianxie, Qian Qian, Qian Qian, Qian Qian Qian. 2. To Qian Qianxie, to Qian 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 Q. T. After several tens of rounds, the two sides were evenly matched, but soon, Luo Qingxun felt a bit powerless. Feng Qianxie's eyes went from slightly probing to deeply probing. Chapter 2034. Feng Qianxie's beautiful eyes slightly narrowed as he said, "You broke my bell, but you say I bullied you. Miss, what kind of logic is this?" "It's not completely broken." Luo Qingxun's brows slightly trembled as she carefully bent down to pick up the bell. Her Phoenix dance sword was still in a defensive state, and she did not dare to relax in the slightest. After all, although the other side was the male lead, in a situation where she did not have any favorable impression of him, even if he killed her with a single slash, she could not blame him. Therefore, she needed to be careful with her every move. However, when she picked up the bell, her heart was a bit nervous because the two small bells tied to the bottom of the bell were half broken. Overall, it looks like it can still be used. Luo Qingxun's lips curled into an awkward smile as she said, "What does your highness the crown prince plan on doing with this bell?" "Offering a sacrifice." Feng Qianche narrowed his eyes and his lips curled into an extremely mysterious smile as he said, "It seems like the sacrifice item needs to be changed." Change? What? Luo Qingshun cleared her throat and cautiously took a step back as she said, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, if you have something to say, we can talk it out. Because you cannot beat me, you have two choices." Feng Qianche's dark eyes looked up as he said, 1. Lose your life on the spot. 2. Live for 2 more days. 2 more days? The bell in your hand is the joyous union bell that I used as a sacrifice for my mother's soul. Now that it has been broken, the sacrifice item naturally needs to be chosen again. Feng Qianche's lips curled into a smile as he said, "Since it is the will of the heavens, since you broke the joyous union bell, you naturally need to replace it as a sacrifice." A bunch of nonsense. Although she thought this in her heart, she did not say it out loud. "I want to live for 2 more days." She pursed her lips and said, "Speak. What do you want me to do?" "I want to make a trip to Snow Peak Mountain to offer a sacrifice to my mother. You need to come with me." He narrowed his eyes, and a faint guang flashed across his brows. It was a very faint light, but it was very beautiful. Luo Qingshan thought for a bit. In this situation, if she did not go, she was afraid that she would end up fighting with Feng Qianche. If both sides suffered heavy losses, it would not be worth it. Moreover, this was a good chance to get close to Feng Qianche, even though she didn't know what kind of person he was in this plane. But when they were fighting, he inadvertently saw the black mark behind his ear. It was so familiar. "Deal." He narrowed his eyes and slowly raised his right hand. "Give me the bell." Luo Qingshun looked at the bell in her hand and handed it over. He took it carefully, and the moment his fingertips touched it, she felt a slight chill. Just as Luo Qingshun was about to say something, his personal bodyguard appeared behind him and cupped his hands. "Your Highness, find her a set of your clothes." He looked at Luo Qingshun from head to toe and said, "The smallest size." At this moment, Luo Qingshun felt her cheeks blushing and her heart beating fast. These slightly teasing words, coming from the mouth of a person as cold as ice, gave her a very strange feeling. She couldn't help thinking about what Feng Qianche would be like if he fell in love with someone. Would he be cold or overbearing? "Miss, please come with me." His personal bodyguard had a vigilant look when he saw her, but now he was especially respectful. Chapter 2035. Snow Peak Mountain's weather was not like Chang'an's, and the closer one got, the colder it became. Luo Qingshun suddenly understood why Feng Qianche gave her the smallest set of clothes. At the very least, it was close-fitting and would not let the wind out. Misappearance in men's clothing is more beautiful than women's. Feng Qianche's personal bodyguard Dong Liang looked at her white smiling face and said, "That day, you looked like a female ghost." "Nonsense." Luo Qingshun rolled her eyes and said, "That's because you haven't seen this miss in women's clothing. It's enough to hide the moon and shame the flowers, captivate the birds and beasts, and cause the downfall of a country." Feng Qianche, who had been sitting at the side with his eyes closed, heard this and his brows slightly knit. His thin lips softly said, "Are you not embarrassed to say these words?" "I'm speaking the truth." Luo Qingshun's eyes trembled as she said, "If you're unhappy hearing this, then it's because you're jealous of my good looks." "Pooh!" Dong Liang heard this and could not help but laugh. "Our master is the most handsome man in the world." "Ignorant and inexperienced." Luo Qingshun gave a soft snort and said, "There are many good-looking people in this world. You just haven't seen them." "For example?" Feng Qianche opened his eyes, and a cold light flickered in his beautiful eyes. He seriously looked at her and said, "Say the name, and I'll believe you." In this moment, Luo Qingshun felt like she had fallen into a demon's trap. She actually blurted out the 3 words that were most impossible to say. "Does Rongmu Ling count?" The moment she said this, she knit her brows and a dim light flashed in her eyes. Actually, she had some doubts. After all, saying these words was not her original intention. Yes, this is the original owner's remaining fantasy. AI. Is the person this miss is talking about the son of the Minister of Revenue, Rong's son? Dong Liang thought for a bit and said, "This humble one has seen him a few times. He is indeed very elegant." Feng Qianxie, who was sitting at the side, had a clear change in expression. He narrowed his eyes dangerously and said, "The place you appeared last night was very close to the Rome Manor. Could it be that you're talking about the maidservants inside?" "Nonsense. Bao Bao is the first madam. No, a person like Rong Mu Ling was not even worthy of the original owner. How could he be worthy of her?" "You're right." Luo Qingshun rested her chin on her right hand and carefully examined the face that possessed this bewitching appearance. She slowly opened her mouth and said, "I think you look better than him." Ding, affection has increased by 5. Mission completion rate is now 5%. Wah, wah. He actually added favorable impression points. He was a little excited. Could it be that Feng Qianxie was a special person and liked to hear others praise him for his good looks? "At least you have good taste." His gaze fell on her clear eyes, and his lips curled into a faint smile. Dong Liang seemed to have thought of something all of a sudden. He looked at her and asked, "I haven't asked for your name yet. It seems a little strange for you to call me Miss." "Ching Ching." Luo Qingchun chuckled. "My nickname sounds good, right?" Hearing this, Feng Qianxie helplessly shook his head, but did not refute her. Since yesterday, he felt that he had become a bit strange. He had clearly gone to see his mother with a heavy heart, but he had a happy feeling. Strangely, it was a special happiness. He was very clear on who this happiness came from, but he just didn't show it on the surface. "It sounds good," Dong Liang replied without any hesitation as he looked at her with a silly smile. Chapter 2036. "Master, I checked the things 4 hours ago, and they are all complete," Dong Liang respectfully replied, but his clear eyes remained on Luo Qingchun's body. "Then check it again." When Feng Qianxie said this, his voice was a bit cold. Not to mention Dong Liang. Even Luo Qingchun could hear that this master was not too happy. Dong Liang heard this and immediately stood up with cupped hands. "Yes." When he was about to lift the curtain and get off the carriage, Feng Qianxie said, "Bring my black coat over while you're at it." "Yes, master." Dong Liang had been by Feng Qianxie's side for so many years and naturally knew his master's temperament. It seemed that this girl called Qing Qing was indeed very different. Actually, he should have known that the joyous union bell was an important thing in Feng Qianxie's heart. But the girl who shattered the joyous union bell did not die and instead followed them into the Snow Peak Mountain. This was enough to prove that this girl was special. When they passed through the last town, Feng Qianxie gave Luo Qingchun a bag full of silver and had her get off the carriage to buy some things that she liked to eat. Holding the heavy bag of silver, Luo Qingchun had a feeling that this was the last meal before her death. "Didn't you say that you would let me live for 2 more days?" Luo Qingchun stood under the carriage and looked up at Feng Qianxie sitting in the carriage. "Are you regretting it?" Feng Qianxie's brows moved slightly, and he resisted the urge to laugh. He pretended to look at her with a cold expression and said, "Buy more delicious things. The road there will be difficult to walk." "The road there? The road to the Yellow Springs?" At this moment, Luo Qingchun's mind was filled with the image of the road to the Yellow Springs. Thousands of miles of yellow sand and cold wind whistling. She was alone, walking aimlessly until she reached the underworld at the end of the Yellow Springs. In the next second, she trembled and only had one thought in her mind. Before the favorability reaches 50%, I should think of a way to escape. After all, only by living can I have a higher chance of completing the mission. So cruel. She shook her head and rushed into the market with Feng Qianxie's money pouch, exchanging all the money for food. If she really died, she wanted to die with a full stomach. 6 hours later, they stood at the foot of the snow-capped peak. Luo Qingchun had started to feel the surrounding temperature drop 2 hours ago, and it was getting lower and lower. From the looks of it, the surrounding temperature was about to reach 0. Feng Qianxie saw that she was already unbearably cold here and unconsciously frowned slightly. She lifted the curtain and said to Dong Liang, who had changed from sitting in the carriage to riding a horse, "Give me my clothes." "Yes." Dong Liang took a heavy black coat from the horse's back and said, Master, you seem to have gotten used to it after coming to the snow-capped mountain these few years. I thought you didn't wear it anymore, so I've been looking for it for a long time. Feng Qianxie took the jacket and said, "For Qing, for her." She didn't know why, but she felt that the two words Qing sounded especially strange. It was a feeling that his heart, which had been frozen for a long time, suddenly trembled. Every time he said a word, it would tremble. He, who was born high above, had never felt this kind of careful trembling. When we get down the mountain, the temperature will be half of what it is here. He handed the black coat in his hand to her and said, "Wear your clothes properly. Otherwise, you might not even have eaten those snacks and have already gone to the road to the Yellow Springs." Chapter 2037. Even I wasn't used to it when I first came here. Half of the guards that followed me on the mountain froze to death. His eyes were faint and his eyes were as calm as water, without any ripples at all. Luo Qingshun quickly put on the coat and seriously tied the belt. It had to be said, when she put on this furry black coat, she instantly felt warm. She was suddenly a bit moved. Although Feng Qianxie's face was ice cold, he had already taken care of her after knowing her for less than 2 days. It seemed like the 5% affection was still a bit useful. The coat Feng Qianxie gave her was very big, and it directly fell to her ankles. He saw that she couldn't tie the belt properly after a while, so he helplessly said, "Let me do it." Luo Qingshun nervously pursed her lips and said, "Thank you." He skillfully put the belt through the holes on both sides of the coat and tied a knot behind her back. Luo Qingshun could feel his slender fingers carefully circling around her back twice before raising his right hand and putting the hood on her head as he said, Not bad. Is this master praising me for looking good?" She gave a soft laugh as a faint glow appeared in her clear eyes. She was a bit stunned and couldn't help falling into a daze. Ding, affection has increased by 5. Mission completion rate is now 10%. You really are bold. You're not calling me your highness, and you're calling me master like Dong Liang? His deep eyes narrowed, and there was a feeling in his heart that he didn't want to see Dong Liang recently. Luo Qingshun thought in her heart, "It's already good that this treasure isn't calling you Feng Qianxie." But on the surface, she looked at him with a smile and said, "Aren't we outside? If our identities are exposed, it wouldn't be good if we were chased by our enemies. I'm doing this to protect this master's safety. If we meet our enemies, you'll run faster than anyone else." Feng Qianxie instantly replied to her. He narrowed his eyes and looked over her. He really didn't believe that there would be a person in this world that didn't care about their own safety. Whether it was his imperial father, the empress, or the personal bodyguards who followed him to Shuefeng Mountain, they were all loyal to him without thinking about him. Being born in the royal family, there were some things that he could see more clearly. Not to mention this person whom he had known for less than 2 days. If she ran away in a crisis, he wouldn't find it strange at all. How could that be? Luo Qingshun's eyebrows twitched slightly. If I were in danger, Dong Liang wouldn't have run away. That's because if I die in the Snow Peak Mountain, they will die as well. Feng Qianxie seriously looked at her face and said word by word, "This is the reason why they would sacrifice themselves to protect me." Hearing Feng Qianxie's words, her heart was unconsciously startled. This was a kind of loneliness, or perhaps a kind of loneliness. The words he expressed between the lines seemed to be telling of the indifference of this world, an indifference that had no sincerity. Maybe you shouldn't deny everyone. Luo Qingshun took a deep breath, looked at him, and said, "There are many people in this world who give their hearts to others, whether it is family, friendship, or love. I don't believe you." He hooked his lips into a smile, a faint coldness in his eyes. His thin lips softly said, "Because I even deny myself." In this world, he didn't love anyone because the person he loved the most was himself. He knew better than anyone that there was no one who could surpass himself in his heart, whether it was his royal father who raised him or his royal mother who died for him. Chapter 2038. Seeing Feng Qianxie like this, Luo Qingshun suddenly understood just how cold the feelings of the royal family were. The high and mighty monarch could kill his own child for his own benefit, and the so-called child could also kill his own royal father for the throne. This kind of feeling was truly too weak. Not even 2 hours after entering Snow Peak Mountain, the snow in the sky had already turned from drifting snowflakes to goose feather-heavy snow. There was a thick layer of snow on the road, and half of the wheels were covered in snow, so the journey gradually slowed down. Luo Qingshun stuck her head out of the carriage, and the fine snowflakes fell on her face, chilling her to the bone. When she wanted to reach out to catch the snowflakes, she was pulled back by Feng Qianche sitting beside her. "What are you doing? If you want your head to become a target for assassins, you can stick your entire head out." He narrowed his eyes, and there was a flash of light in his eyes. "Assassins?" She blinked and said, "Aren't you going out in disguise? Will there be assassins?" Logically speaking, as the Eastern Palace's crown prince, Feng Qianche's itinerary should be kept a secret. "I will come to Snow Peak Mountain every year to pay respects to my imperial concubine mother. This trip will not take more than 3 days, so people with good intentions will definitely be able to calculate it." Feng Qianche calmly said, "If I am not on guard, I would be more willing to pay respects to my imperial concubine mother alone." Seeing Feng Qianche's faint appearance, Luo Qingshun suddenly felt that she could not understand this man in front of her. He was sometimes cold, sometimes cruel, sometimes overbearing, and sometimes gentle. But she knew that as the crown prince, no matter what he did, he had to be careful. One wrong step, and he would not be able to ascend to the throne, but rather the underworld. "Your imperial concubine mother must be very good." Luo Qingshun changed the topic and said with a faint smile, "Just by looking at you, I can tell that she must be a peerless beauty. Didn't you just say that the most beautiful person in the world is Minister Rong's son, Rong Muling?" Feng Qianche narrowed his eyes, and a trace of probing flashed in his eyes. That was in the past. People, there are times when they don't understand. Luo Qingshun seriously looked at him and said, "You don't think it looks good now?" Even if Rong Muling was the most handsome man in the world, he was still trash in her eyes. Only the original owner would think that he was good. It seems that Qing. Lady's eyes changed very quickly. Feng Qianche curled her lips into a smile. "Then who do you think is the most beautiful person in this world right now?" Luo Qingshun clicked her tongue and suddenly recalled the 5 points of favorability she added at the beginning. His Highness the Crown Prince probably wanted others to praise him, but she suddenly wanted to be mischievous. "Of course it's me." She pursed her lips and chuckled. "Didn't Dong Liang compliment me just now? You really are." Hearing this, the corners of Feng Qianche's mouth curled into a helpless smile, very confident. "Ding, affection has increased by 5. Mission completion rate is now 15%. Hearing the notification from the system, Luo Qingshun lowered her head and hid the smile that she couldn't hide. Although the favorability increased very slowly in this world, she felt that it was very real. She felt that the female lead aura was not that important. She was slowly walking into this youth's heart step by step. Even if it was a bit difficult, it won because it was real. "Master, the horse carriage shouldn't be able to continue on the last part of the mountain road." Dong Liang softly tapped the sedan and said, "Should we do the same as before and settle the horses down first?" Chapter 2039. When her thin embroidered shoes stepped onto the snow, she felt her body tremble and the soles of her feet were instantly filled with a bone-chilling cold. "How far is it from here to where your mother is buried?" Luo Qingshun slightly knit her brows. Her feet would be crippled if she walked with these shoes. Feng Qianche's brows slightly moved, and his eyes filled with pride as he looked at her, and said, "When I told you to go to the town to buy things, why didn't you remember? You're still talking about me. You also don't remember." She felt a cold feeling slowly spread through her body, and even her warm hands gradually turned cold. "Of course I remember." He gave a soft snort and turned to Dong Liang behind him to say, "Give her the things I told you to buy." "All right, master." Dong Liang took a pair of moon-white boots from his horse's back and slowly walked over to Luo Qingshun as he said, "Miss Qingqing, this is what master told me to buy for you. It's the smallest size, see if it fits." Luo Qingshun was stunned, and a faint guang flashed in her clear eyes. There was an inexplicable feeling of being moved. "What are you in a daze for?" Feng Qianche saw that she was in a daze, and his thin lips softly said, "You don't want it? It's not that." She did not say anything else and seriously put on the boots before saying, "Thank you, it's just right." She blinked her bright eyes and looked at Feng Qianche with a sweet smile. Her face was filled with a moved look. Feng Qianche's brows slightly moved, and his eyes had a trace of gentleness. Looking at her smile at this moment, he was in a daze. "You're welcome." He strangely said these 3 words. This was his first time saying these 3 words since he was born. Ding, affection has increased by 5. Mission completion rate is now 20%. There are some people who would unknowingly give you warmth. It wasn't too deep or too shallow, it was just right. She suddenly felt that she strangely liked Feng Qianche. It wasn't because he was the male lead, and it wasn't because they had experienced a long time together. Rather, it was because of his small actions that made people feel that liking someone was a very simple matter. Under the moonlight and stars, the temperature on the snow-capped peak was several times colder than at the foot of the mountain. Even though she was wearing a thick coat, Luo Qingshun could feel the cold wind blowing in her direction. It was bone-chilling. Feng Qianche's mother's memorial tablet was placed in Qingsan Temple at the top of the snowy peak. When Feng Qianche saw the abbot, he bowed deeply. The abbot looked quite old, but he was still full of vigor, giving people a feeling that he was old but vigorous. It was just that this cold night was really hard to sleep. Even though she was wrapped in a blanket, she still felt a bone-piercing cold wind. She thought, if an assassin came at this time, they probably wouldn't be able to escape. As it turned out, the assassin did not want to come to this damned place in the middle of the night. After all, life was precious. The next morning, Feng Qianche changed into a long white robe. When she knelt in front of the coffin, there was some gentleness in her eyes. "Mother, we haven't seen each other for a year. How have you been?" "I'm fine. Don't worry. In the past few days, the 9th Emperor has been restless and has sent assassins to kill me several times. All of them have been killed by me." He talked for a long time, sometimes muttering and sometimes revealing a faint smile. Luo Qingshun suddenly found that she was looking at a different Feng Qianche, a crown prince with flesh and blood. When she said her final words, Luo Qingshun couldn't help being stunned. Chapter 2040. The joyous union bell that you left for this child was accidentally broken by someone else. This child originally planned to use it as a sacrifice to you today. When Feng Qianche said these words, Luo Qingshun could feel her feet slowly move in the snow. What did he mean? Could it be that he really wanted her to be a sacrifice? Was it really that ruthless? That joyous union bell could be reused after being used once. She was a person, a living person. After being sacrificed once, the second sacrifice would probably be her soul. When Luo Qingshun's mind was filled with messy thoughts, Feng Qianche continued to slowly speak. But this child is a little reluctant. If you were still here, you would probably like this girl. Narcissistic and egotistical. She has a pride that others don't have, but it also makes people feel very comfortable. Hearing Feng Qianche's words, her originally cold and pale face could not help but reveal a faint blush. She felt like she was listening to a confession, but this was not a confession. She stood behind him like this and watched as he bowed 3 times in the direction of the coffin before slowly standing up. The snowy peaks that were covered in snow all year round seemed to have stopped snowing at this moment. He slowly turned around and tied the 2 broken joyous union bells to her waist. After a long time, he said, "I'll put yours down first. Once it's fixed, give it to me." Luo Qingshun looked up with a bit of doubt in her eyes as she seriously looked at him. Her lips curled into a smile as she said, "You just said that you couldn't bear to part with me, and now you're giving me this bell. Could it be that you're giving me a token of love?" At this time, Feng Qianche, who was helping her tie the joyous union bells, was slightly startled. He suddenly looked up and a pair of deep eyes entered her eyes. He said with a gentle smile, "Truly narcissistic. Actually, Luo Qingchen was not completely sure what Feng Qianche was thinking. After all, to use 20% of the affection to probe a crown prince's heart was just too difficult. But Master did not directly answer my question. Her brows slightly moved, and her eyes were filled with anticipation. Feng Qianche looked at her like this and felt an inexplicable nervousness. This nervousness was different from her usual nervousness. He knew that it came from her eyes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Little did he know that in the next second, before he could reply, a long arrow brushed past them and pierced into the abbot's chest. In the blink of an eye, Feng Qianche grabbed Luo Qingchen's hand and jumped backwards with a little qinggong, rushing towards the abbot's position. Luo Qingchen was stunned for a moment. She looked around as fast as she could. There was only one entrance to this Qingsan temple, and it was at the very top of the snow-capped mountain. In front of it was the road they took to come here, and behind it was a cliff. Along the way, Feng Qianche's personal bodyguards had made a mark. If someone followed them up the mountain, he would definitely know. But now, even the arrows were flying out, and they didn't even see the enemy's shadow. Luo Qingchen's brain raced. In this case, there was only one possibility. In the next second, she looked to the side at Feng Qianche, who was standing beside her. She saw his brows tightly knit together as he stared forward. His thin lips softly said to her, "Find a sword and protect yourself." At this time, shouldn't he be the hero saving the beauty, protecting her behind him and saying, "Don't worry, I will protect you"? Chapter 2041. It was probably because Luo Qingchen's expression was too shocked that Feng Qianche did not forget to add, "Your swordsmanship is not bad. You should be able to survive." Luo Qingchen bit her lips and said, "How many of you betrayed me?" In this kind of place where the road ahead was difficult and the road behind was steep, if there were still hidden arrows while guarding the front door, it proved that there were enemies among the personal guards that followed Feng Qianche up the mountain. But how many, Luo Qingchen did not know. As for the death warriors by my side, if there were others who sneaked in, Dong Liang would have discovered it before we set off, or even on the road. He slowly pulled out his sword. His brows were tightly knitted as he said, "Then if no one discovered it at this time, it can only prove Dong Liang betrayed you?" Luo Qingchen's eyes were filled with shock, and when she spoke, she felt that her voice was unconsciously trembling. It was no wonder that for someone as careful as Feng Qianche, wanting to put him in a difficult situation was not an easy matter. Clap, 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 clap. A clear clap sounded, and the main door of the temple was slowly opened. Dong Liang, who was originally guarding outside, pushed the door open and entered. The air was instantly filled with the smell of blood. Master is truly worthy of being called Master. You actually guessed it right. Dong Liang narrowed his eyes and said with an expression of absolute danger, "I thought you would guess that I died in battle. I did not think that you would actually guess that I am the betrayer." According to Dong Liang's personality, if he was not a traitor, even if there was a disaster, he would think of a way to rush in and inform me. It would not be the arrows that arrived first, but you did not. Feng Qianche glanced at the dying abbot behind him and said with a frown, "If I had not walked in Qing's direction, I'm afraid that the one who fell would be me." Feng Qianche's indifferent eyes did not show the slightest ripple, as if Dong Liang's betrayal did not affect his emotions at all. "I have to say, Master, you are really calm." Dong Liang shook his head with some pity. "However, you still trusted in the end. So much so that you did not even notice that there were a few unfamiliar guards by your side. So you are one of Feng Ji's people?" Feng Qianche's cold eyes narrowed. "So when did you become one of their people?" He was indeed puzzled about this. After all, Dong Liang was not his only secret guard. However, he didn't receive any news that something was wrong with him. "I am indeed the 9th prince's man." Dong Liang nodded slightly and looked at him, saying, "But it's not about when you became one of them. You've always been one of them." When Luo Qingchen heard this, her eyes were filled with shock. She glanced sideways at Feng Qianche and asked, "How long has he been by your side?" 5 years. When Dong Liang first came to the Crown Prince's Eastern Palace, he was neither outstanding nor ordinary. He would not deliberately show off his merits, but he was able to complete all his tasks properly. It was probably because of this personality that Feng Qianche noticed him half a year later. In these 5 years, he had gone from a little guard that no one knew of to a popular person by Feng Qianche's side. He treated him well, and he did his best to complete every task for him. However, they were not on the same side. Yes, unknowingly, it's been 5 years. The ninth prince has always been waiting for an opportunity, but you've been too cautious. Dong Liang said with a self-deprecating smile. Every year I've accompanied you here, but every year I'm not the only one who's been tailing the enemy. He paused for a moment before continuing. I had no choice but to poison who before I left, blinding him so that he could not come to the Snow Peak Mountain with you. Chapter 2042. You played this game of chess quite well. Feng Qianche narrowed his eyes as he looked at him. It's a pity that you're doing all this for a prince that's about to fall. Is it worth it? As long as you die, he will be the crowned prince. Dong Liang narrowed his eyes and said, Your Highness, I owe you in this life. But our family's lives were saved by the ninth prince, so I must return this favor. I'm afraid you won't have this chance. In the next second, he waved the long sword in his hand and cut down the wooden stake beside him. His eyes emitted an extreme chill as he looked at him. The relationship between you and me as master and servant is over. Dong Liang's brows knit, and he led the dozens of black, clothed people behind him to surround them. Luo Qingshun took a step back and used the stone pillar to block herself. She then took out the Phoenix Dance sword from her storage space. The sword light suddenly appeared in the white snow. The heavy snow swirled in the air, and the aura of a battle spread around everyone. Feng Qianche took a step back in her direction, and a voice as cool as water entered her ears. You leave first. Feng Qianche's brows slightly knit as he said, There should be 1 or 2 people following you. Take care of it yourself. Luo Qingshun bit her lips and said, What's there to run for? Fight it out with him. She hated this kind of person who used other people's trust and used unscrupulous methods. Since he can hide so many people by my side and endure for so long, he chose to reveal his identity today. This proves, he narrowed his cold eyes and said, he has the confidence to kill me. At this moment, Luo Qingshun felt some admiration for Feng Qianche. After all, in a life and death situation, he was able to analyze the situation so clearly. That's not 100% certainty. Luo Qingshun still wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by him. If you're here, I'll be distracted. She knit her brows, and a faint mist flashed in her eyes. She was still a little moved. Perhaps a 20% favorability was enough for him to care about her life and death. I won't distract you. As soon as her voice fell, she rushed into the crowd with her Phoenix Dance sword without another word. She was probably such a person. If you treated her with sincerity, she would also treat you with sincerity. Feng Qianche clearly did not react as she stood there in a daze for a few seconds. She held a long sword in her hand and rushed into the crowd in a black robe. Her clear eyes were instantly suffused with a touch of frost. The sword in his hand fell, and blood dyed the white snow red. This was the first time she had felt touched. A person she had met by chance was actually willing to sacrifice everything for her and kill his way into the crowd. Don't ask about the past. Don't ask about the past. Don't ask about life or death. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 30%. In fact, Luo Qingshun wasn't surprised at all by the prompt. She knew that when she decided to stay and fight alongside Feng Qianche, she would definitely become different in his eyes. She still had this bit of confidence. However, don't just stand there. Luo Qingshun pursed her lips. Using her qing gong, she panted as she looked at him and said, Quickly come and help. Feng Qianche narrowed his cold eyes and quickly arrived beside her. His right hand pulled her behind him, and he said in a voice filled with accusation, Nonsense. It doesn't count. After that, her lips slightly curled, and she revealed a proud smile as she said, I took care of 3. Chapter 2043. Feng Qianche gave a soft snort and her eyes were filled with disdain as she looked at him. "Do you think you can live until then? Your Highness, why don't you take a look at the roof first?" In the next second, a row of archers appeared on the roof. They were all dressed in night clothes and had their faces covered, making it impossible to see their faces. But what was certain was that the arrow had come from the side. It seemed that they had already made preparations. "We can't fight here. It's easy to dodge an open attack, but hard to defend against an arrow in the dark." Luo Qingshun knit her brows and said, "Is there any other path we can take?" Feng Qianche tightly knit her brows, and there was a dark light in her deep eyes. Her thin lips softly said, "We definitely can't pass through the path ahead. Behind the temple is a cliff is a cliff." In an instant, she raised her right hand, and the phoenix dance sword stirred up a snowflake. She reached out to grab Feng Qianche's hand and walked into Qing's Sun Temple. Humph! In the next second, Dong Liang gave a snort and said, "A turtle in a jar. You guys guard the door. Don't let even a fly fly out." After he finished instructing the archers, he said to the dozen death warriors behind him, "You guys come with me to meet them." For Dong Liang, he was not in a hurry at all, because Feng Qianche had nowhere to run. At this moment, there was only one outcome for him. That was waiting for death. When Luo Qingshun arrived at the cliff behind the temple, her heart instantly jumped into her throat. The snow in the sky became heavier and heavier. From where she was, the cliff seemed to be towering in the clouds, so deep that she could not see the bottom. Dong Liang unhurriedly chased after her with more than 10 well-trained men in black behind him. "I said before, you can't run." Dong Liang helplessly shrugged and said, "Perhaps your Highness can cut off your own arms. That way, you might have a chance to live." Luo Qingshun looked at Dong Liang's expression, and it did not seem like he was mocking her. People's hearts were made of flesh. After 5 years of master and servant relationship, he used the other party's trust to turn the tables. His heart was filled with guilt. Perhaps he thought that this was Feng Qianche's only hope to live. After all, a person with broken arms could not become a future emperor, but he could live on. "You've been by my side for so many years. Don't tell me you still don't understand my temper?" His cold eyes narrowed as his entire body emitted waves of coldness. Heavy snow swirled in the sky, and behind him was a cliff. Feng Qianche held a sword in his left hand. His moon-white clothes were stained with blood from the battle earlier, making him look particularly ghastly. If she hadn't seen it, Luo Qingshun probably wouldn't have known that he was injured. "Then I'm afraid I'll have to say goodbye to your Highness." With that, he raised his right hand, and the archers behind him immediately took their positions. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Release the arrows." Feng Qianche forcefully pushed Luo Qingshun back. She only felt her body become unstable in an instant. Her right foot dangled in the air beside the cliff and rubbed against it a few times. Fine rocks fell into the abyss. "I finally let you know why you came to this cliff." Feng Qianche's brows slightly moved. In this moment of life and death, the corners of his mouth unconsciously curled into a faint smile. He turned to look at her and said, "So Miss Qing wants to die with me." Chapter 2044. What she didn't know was that in the blink of an eye, Feng Qianche's right hand pulled back and Luo Qingshun, standing on the edge of the cliff, into his embrace. Luo Qingshun was stunned. Before she could react, Feng Qianche was holding her as they fell into the 10,000-foot abyss. "My God!" she called out in shock as the sound of the wild wind filled her ears. The moment they fell off the cliff, Feng Qianche's body fell down. When he looked at her, he was against the light of the snow. In those deep eyes, there was a faint trace of gentleness. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 40%. Luo Qingshun's expression. She didn't want to die yet. Space and time freeze. After saying these 4 words in her heart, the scene around her instantly froze. 3 meters below her was the bottom of the cliff. The delicate snowflakes fell onto Feng Qianche's long lashes. He seriously looked into her eyes, and there was a clear reflection of her in them. The space and time freeze lasted for a long time. It should be because of the increase in level that she had a chance to stand outside the space and seriously look at Feng Qianche's face. His white clothes were as good as before. He really looked good. Pong! She didn't calculate the time properly, and the space and time freeze ended. Feng Qianche tightly knit his brows before a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Falling from such a high cliff, why didn't he feel any chaos in the aura in his body? He thought that if he was lucky, he would at least have 7-8 broken ribs, but his body didn't feel any pain at all. Luo Qingxin looked at him and slowly stood up. She patted off the snow on her and reached out her hand to him. "Quickly get up." Feng Qianche was stunned, and he couldn't help placing his hand in her palm. The moment he touched her, a faint warmth flowed through his body. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 50%. Ha ha, it's finally 50%. If Feng Qianche placed a sword on her neck now, she would definitely say, "Kill, kill, 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 as you wish. If you're willing, it's my loss. Are we at the bottom of the cliff?" Feng Qianche's voice had a trace of uncertainty, and his beautiful eyes looked very cute. "Yeah." Luo Qingxun climbed up the snow-covered rock and replied, "But it's so cold here." Feng Qianche looked around. Logically speaking, it should be noon right now, but this place was foggy and the temperature was extremely low. This might be the so-called unbounded land. Feng Qianche's eyebrows slightly knit together as she said, "The temperature at night should be at least twice as low as it is now." "What? Double?" Luo Qingxun blinked in panic. What kind of place is the unbounded land? Wouldn't he have frozen to death? At this temperature, she felt that if she didn't move for a long time, she might freeze to death. "Yes, I'll go around and see if there are any living creatures or withered grass. Stay where you are and don't move. It's going to be dark soon." Luo Qingxun nodded casually and said, "There seems to be an igloo over there. How could there be a house at the bottom of the cliff where no one would pass through for hundreds of years? Then let's go take a look first." Feng Qianche narrowed his eyes as a faint trace of worry flashed in his eyes. In this white snowy land, some places look very close, but were actually very far away. Chapter 2045. Feng Qianche took out a flame from his pocket and gently pushed the door. With a kacha sound, the thick snow fell down from the door. When he touched her white cheeks, he felt an icy chill. "Move back a bit." Feng Qianche's cool as water voice entered her ears. She felt that unknowingly, he had become especially gentle. There shouldn't be anyone here. Luo Qingxun looked at the spider webs around her and said, "Have all the spiders in this place turned into snow spiders." After that, Feng Qianche's right hand shook and the white spider fell to the ground. He knit his brows and said, "It's poisonous." As soon as his voice fell, he walked in while saying, "But we can live in this place for a few days." Although there was a thick layer of dust on the wooden pile, there was a candlestick that had some wax inside. Although it was covered in snow, there was a flame that could be lit. Not long ago, there should have been people living here, but there was no one after that. Luo Qingxun looked around and said, "Based on the thickness of the dust, it should have been around 20 years ago." Feng Qianche knit his brows, and there was a strange throbbing in his heart. He felt that there was a different feeling in his heart after entering this room. It wasn't fear or uneasiness. Perhaps it was longing. It was very late at night, and the sky was dark. Other than the snow, there was more snow. It was unknown where Feng Qianche had gotten a few fish. After making a fire, it was very fragrant. There's still fish in such a cold place? Luo Qingxun smelled the fragrance of the fish, and her stomach began to grumble. She suddenly missed the snacks she bought from the town, especially the tonghulu that looked very tempting. On the way here, she had fought and jumped off a cliff, so she had already exhausted her strength. Have you heard of the story of crouching on the ice to find carp? Feng Qianche helplessly shook his head. Seeing her drooling over the food, his lips couldn't help curling into a faint smile. Far away from the ice-cold palace, far away from the noise of Chang'an, at this moment, in this desolate and dilapidated house, he actually felt an inexplicable warmth. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 60%. So you just went to ice? Luo Qingxun was stunned for a moment. She looked Feng Qianxie up and down, her eyes filled with disbelief. He looked at her with a helpless expression and said, I have a sword. Oh, I knew it. She smiled awkwardly and muttered softly, how can body temperature melt ice so quickly? Feng Qianxie probably heard her whispered words, and his deep eyes narrowed as he said, you think that my embrace isn't warm enough, but when I jumped off the cliff, my clothes were torn by you. I was just nervous. Luo Qingqian's eyes trembled in embarrassment. Who wouldn't be nervous in that kind of situation? Then why are you blushing now? His starry eyes carried a faint light as he stared at her seriously. There were some things that she wouldn't be this nervous if she didn't say it, but once she said it, she could feel her heart beating fast, and it couldn't be controlled at all. She saw Feng Qianxie slowly stand up. While looking at her deeply, he slowly walked in her direction. Chapter 2046. There was a faint fragrance in the air that seemed to be coming from his body. The ambiguous atmosphere was inadvertently ignited. Feng Qianxie looked at her long and curly eyelashes, her slightly pursed lips, and her hands nervously holding her outer robe. His heart was strangely filled with joy. This kind of joy suddenly gave him an answer in his heart. He thought that with his personality that only loved himself, there would be no one that would move his heart. Even the future crown princess and the empress existed for his power and benefits. But in this moment, he changed his original thoughts. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 70%. When he was about to lean over and kiss her, the painting behind him that was covered in dust attracted his eyes. He narrowed his eyes, and his heart couldn't help trembling. Luo Qingqian, who had her eyes tightly closed, felt the person in front of her brush past her. She immediately opened her eyes, and the blush spread to her ears. Damn it! At this moment, she wanted to find a hole to hide in, because it really was embarrassing. Feng Qianxie, Luo Qingqian, might as well go all out. She turned around to look at him with an angry expression and said, affection has already increased, but you actually... Before her voice fell, her eyes were also attracted by the girl in the painting. Although the painting was covered in dust, it could still be seen that the girl in the painting was very beautiful. It was as if no beautiful words could describe her beauty. That kind of beauty that made people suffocate. Could be that Feng Qianxie had taken a liking to her. After that, the doubt in her heart was immediately denied by herself. No one had come to this place for around 20 years. If this girl had this kind of appearance back then, she should be in her early 40s now. It shouldn't be considered liking her. But why was Feng Qianxie so entranced by it? What is it? She carefully opened her mouth and broke the silence in the room. Qing, help me bring the candle over. Because he had made a decision in his heart, he would unconsciously change the way he called her. He always felt that if he called her like this, she would be his. In this world, no one could take her away. Oh, all right. Luo Qingqian listened to his gentle voice and instantly turned into an obedient child. She picked up the candle on the table and walked in his direction. Feng Qianxie gently brushed away the dust on the painting. Under the illumination of the candlelight, her face appeared even more alluring. Do you know her? Looking at Feng Qianxie's focused appearance, Luo Qingqian felt that she probably knew her. That pair of eyes that were as deep as ink emitted not the light of adoration, but of longing. She's my mother. Feng Qianxie carefully removed the painting from the wall. Her eyebrows moved slightly as she said, it should be that person's portrait of my mother. That person? Luo Qingqian's gaze fell on the bottom right corner of the painting. Signed, Commoner. Actually, the person that my imperial mother loves is not my imperial father. Feng Qianxie's slender fingertips brushed across the scroll as she narrowed her eyes and sighed. Do you want to hear a story? I want to hear it. She sat on the bed that had been cleaned and closed her eyes. I think it's probably a sad story. Chapter 2047. On this cold and silent night, Luo Qingqian seemed to have heard a sad story similar to the original owners. But the story was not a copy, but a different kind of sadness. Feng Qianxie's mother was named Ling Long. She and Commoner were childhood sweethearts. When the two were young, they made a promise to each other. But Commoner would never know that Ling Long was just too beautiful. She was so beautiful that when the Phoenix Emperor saw her for the first time, he could not forget her. Ling Long was not a descendant of a famous family, and could at most be considered a young miss of a scholarly family. Commoner, he was just a scholar. The two families could be considered a match. They thought that after they grew up, they would have a beautiful story. But they never imagined that an accident would cause them to lose each other. That year, the snow was very thick. Ling Long happened to be going out to buy some bonuses for finished products. Little did she know that she would bump into the Phoenix Emperor's carriage. 10,000 years in one glance. Love at first sight. When the Phoenix Emperor saw her, he was captivated by her beauty. After returning to the palace, he quickly called for her to enter the palace. Ling Long did not understand at the time. The depths of the palace were hard to enter, but it was even harder to leave. The Phoenix Emperor clearly expressed his love for her and wanted to take her as his concubine. The Ling Long of that year was young and frivolous. After righteously rejecting him, she said the name of the person she loved in front of the Phoenix Emperor. The Phoenix Emperor immediately sent Commoner E to the death row and announced that he would be executed after autumn. At that moment, Ling Long understood that some people's love could not be rejected because she did not have the qualifications to refuse. But she loved Commoner. Even if she lived a simple life, she was willing to live in seclusion with Commoner E and live a life with only the two of them. Because of the obsession in her heart, she had a plan. She pretended to submit to the Phoenix Emperor and said that if he let Commoner E go, she would marry him as his concubine. But before she married him, he could not touch her. Otherwise, she would rather die with Commoner E. In the end, the Phoenix Emperor agreed. But the Phoenix Emperor never thought that Ling Long would make all the arrangements on the day of the wedding and leave the palace with Commoner E. But they were only normal people, so how could they escape the Phoenix Emperor's palm? They ran all the way up Snow Peak Mountain. Finally, Phoenix Thorch sent people to surround the mountain and went up personally. When Feng Qianxie spoke to this point, she stopped. Luo Qingchun was somewhat fascinated by what she heard and hurriedly asked, And then, I don't know what happened after that. His eyebrows moved slightly, and his eyes carried a probing look as he said, I only know that back then, only Imperial Mother went down the mountain alone, and I didn't see the silhouette of the commoner. It seems that he came here? Luo Qingchun's gaze landed on the painting in Feng Qianxie's hand and continued. But Emperor Feng married your mother in the end. Yes, he loved her crazily. Feng Qianxie gently smiled and shook her head. Even if tens of thousands of people tried to stop him, he never changed his original intentions. So, you are the crown prince. He loves my mother. There are 3,000 beauties in the harem, but he only loves my mother. Feng Qianxie helplessly smiled. Unfortunately, the love of an emperor is the most dangerous. Danger? Luo Qingchun narrowed her eyes and said, Could it be that your mother was... That's right. Feng Qianxie raised her eyebrows and said, Imperial father killed many people. As long as there were suspicions, he killed them all. But so what? My mother will never be able to come back to life. When Luo Qingchun heard this, she gently patted his back and said, Since you've taken your revenge, don't take it to heart. Chapter 2048. No revenge. Luo Qingchun was stunned for a moment. She looked at him and said, Didn't you say that the Phoenix Emperor killed your mother's murderer? Those people were just scapegoats. Feng Qianxie's cold eyes narrowed as he said, The true mastermind behind the scenes has always been in the palace. Hearing Feng Qianxie's words, Luo Qingchun was a little confused. She only saw him gently shake his head and say, The problem is that I can't take revenge. Why? Luo Qingchun's clear eyes trembled, and she said with a frown, The Phoenix Emperor likes your mother so much, he should support you. One is my mother who gave birth to me, and the other is the Empress who raised me. What do you think I should choose? His voice was filled with helplessness. He gently raised his right hand and brushed it across her face with a faint pampering look in his eyes. What? The Empress killed your mother? Luo Qingchun cried out in surprise. She grabbed his hand, and a bone-chilling cold spread through her palm. He faintly nodded his head and leaned against the other side of the bed as he slowly closed his eyes. Luo Qingshun held his hand and looked at his snowy white brows. She nervously said, "Feng Qian-che." He did not respond, and his long eyelashes gently trembled on his white cheeks. Luo Qingshun quickly came to his side and touched his forehead. It was cold. She touched his face. It was cold. The temperature here should be around -40 degrees Celsius. His white clothes, which were not considered warm, seemed especially thin in this place. "Don't sleep." Luo Qingshun gently shook his shoulder. She looked at him with a panicked expression and said, "Feng Qian-che, don't sleep." Feng Qian-che, who was half leaning against the wooden bed, did not react at all. He still had his eyes closed as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. In the next second, Luo Qingshun quickly took off her long coat. Just as she was about to put it on Feng Qian-che, the youth who had been sleeping beside her suddenly opened his eyes. His right hand suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her into his embrace. Before she could react, his cool voice rang in her ears. "I tied a dead knot. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 80%. It was as if he had been waiting for an opportunity, an excuse, a perfect opportunity to embrace her without any warning. Feng Qian-che. Luo Qingshun's eyes were slightly red as she gritted her teeth and said, "What are you doing?" At that moment, she could feel the fear in the depths of her heart. She was afraid that the person who had always been by her side would suddenly leave her. This kind of fear almost occupied her entire heart. Until now, he still hadn't completely recovered from his shock. "I just want to see you nervous." He chuckled and tightened his arms around her. He looked at her and said, "If we can return to Chaoyan, I'll go and ask for your hand in marriage, okay?" Ask for her hand in marriage? In that instant, Luo Qingshun suddenly thought of her own identity. She was the daughter of Grand Scholar Luo Lin. She didn't know if the Luo and Rong families had already fallen out with her sudden disappearance. But this was also good. The previous host had suffered such grievances, and she was filled with envy. She would take back the things she had never obtained before. "Your Highness doesn't even know who I am, and you're asking for my hand in marriage?" Luo Qingshun raised her brows with a smile and said, "If I was the daughter of a traitor, would you still ask for my hand in marriage?" Chapter 2049. What? She slightly nodded and looked at him with clear eyes. The corners of her lips slightly rose as she said, "Could it be that your Highness the Crown Prince plans on having 3,000 beauties in your harem?" These words were meant to tease him, but she did not know that he would give her a direct counterattack in the next second. It was not a retort or a taunt, but rather without another word. He sealed it with a kiss. She nervously closed her eyes and felt the lingering coolness with a bit of sweetness. After a long time, he finally slowly let her go. She immediately touched her red ears and cleared her throat as she said, "That. You. Did I say something wrong?" He looked at her cute appearance. She was so nervous that she was stuttering, and he could not help curling his lips into a smile as he said, "What do you think you said was right? It seems like I said something wrong." She cleared her throat and said, "Then you can't steal a kiss from me." In that instant, she seemed to have found a reason, and her tone suddenly became confident. Little did she know that in the next second, Feng Qian-che raised his right hand and wrapped it around her neck. He deeply kissed her and said, "I didn't steal a kiss, I did it openly." Actually, his kiss was very gentle. It was not a particularly domineering kiss. Rather, it was gentle like water with a touch of delicateness. It left people with a feeling of endless aftertaste. What was she thinking? "Then aren't you cold?" She changed the topic and touched his face with a bit of heartache as she said, "It's ice cold." "Then let me hold you." Feng Qian-che seriously looked at her and said with a pampering gaze, "So liking someone feels like this. What does it feel like?" She blinked and looked at him as she asked. Feng Qian-che heard this and slowly pulled her into his embrace. He gently patted her back and said, "Complacent with the hardships of the world, waiting to grow old with you." She closed her eyes and felt the strong beating of his heart as she fell into a deep sleep. On this night filled with wind and snow, she had a dream. In the dream, she saw Ling Long and Bu Yi from the past. Before Ling Long was taken back, she and Bu Yi had always lived in this room. Although the time was short, it was the happiest time of their lives. After Ling Long was forced back to the palace, Bu Yi had been waiting in this room. Day after day, year after year, he finally received the news of Ling Long's death. He had silently gone with her just now. The dream was very blurry. She didn't know if it was real or not, but when she woke up, her heart couldn't calm down. It wasn't the bleakness of the story that moved her, but the fact that they couldn't be together, even though they were clearly in love, was too cruel. The next morning, when Luo Qingshun woke up, Feng Qianxie had caught 2 more fish, and the aroma filled the air. After we finish eating, we have to think of a way to go up. Feng Qianxie looked at her and said, "Just now I saw a small path in front of the lake. There should be a chance to go up." "How did you know?" "This small path should have been left behind by Bai all those years ago." Feng Qianxie's brows twitched slightly as she said, "After all, he would definitely have gone there to inquire about my mother." "That makes sense." Luo Qingxun nodded and recalled last night's dream. "And after he knew that your mother had passed away, he should have committed suicide." Although a dream was a dream, her dream was definitely related to reality. After all, she was clear in her heart that not only could her dream predict the future, it could also peek into the past. "How did you know?" Chapter 2050. Feng Qianxie's analysis was most likely correct. Although the path was covered in shrubs, it was still a path. It was a bit difficult to walk, but that did not mean it was impossible. Luo Qingshun carefully followed behind him. He helped her cut off the branches and grass before letting her walk forward. She followed behind him like this. Seeing his white robes and wide shoulders, she felt at ease. She was finally going back. Feng Qianxie had enemies, but so did she. It had been many days since the original host had obtained the divorce letter and jumped into the lake. The relationship between the Luo and Rong families must have reached a freezing point. In the bustling Chang'an, the Rong manor was surrounded. This was already the 3rd day. Rong Muling had sent servants to guard the door, not letting anyone in. Whether it was the streets or the palace, this matter had already spread like wildfire. After Luo Qingshun, the only daughter of the grand scholar Luo Lin, married into the Rong manor, she had been treated coldly by Rong Muling for 3 years. In the end, she was even given a divorce letter. Luo Qingshun's heart was like stagnant water, and she jumped into the lake to commit suicide. But in the large lake, the divorce letter was found, but Luo Qingshun's body was not found. The Luo and Rong families were both important figures in the court. Even if they sent out their own guards, the local officials of Chang and did not dare stop them. They could only watch the situation develop and wait for the Feng Emperor to question them. Luo Lin's attitude was very firm. He had to have Rong Mu Ling hand over Lan Lingqian, a life for a life. But even if Rong's son and Madame Rong came to Rong Mu Ling's manor, the door was still closed, and no one knew that Rong Mu Ling did not have the ability to hand over Lan Lingqian. Because the day after Luo Qingshun jumped into the lake, Lan Lingqian disappeared. She never came back again. These days, Rong Mu Ling did not come out. It was not because he was afraid of the Luo family. It was because he had already drunk every night to numb his heart. "Young master, don't drink anymore." The housekeeper handed him a hot towel and said, "Master and madam are outside the door." The grand secretary said that if you don't come out, he will set fire to our Rong estate. "Ha ha," he laughed at himself and said, "Let him burn that side. He's right, a life for a life. I owe my life to Luo Qingshun." Rong Mu Ling was not a fool. After being an official for so many years, how could he not see through the conspiracy in the current situation? It was just that he had been blinded by his own deep love, causing him to be blinded by the situation in the previous days. Lan Lingqian entered the palace 3 years ago and had already become the Empress's servant. Although the Empress was not the Crown Prince's birth mother, she doted on him a lot. Now that the Rong family was very close to the 9th Prince, the Empress was naturally worried that this power would affect the Crown Prince, so she let Lan Lingqian return to his side. But he never would have thought that she would use their relationship as husband and wife, using their child to make him divorce Luo Qingchen, causing the Rong and Luo families to completely break apart. Without the support of the Luo family, even if the Rong family and the ninth prince work together, it would be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Young master, this matter cannot be entirely blamed on you. The housekeeper sighed deeply and said, I have already sent people to find Miss Lan, no need. He sneered and waved his hand, saying, she will not come back. Maybe I did not see it clearly before, but her sudden departure is the best proof. From beginning to end, it was a trap set by Lan Lingxian. She used his sincerity to reach her goal step by step. Chapter 2051. Power? Status? Money? Love? These four things, he could give her any one of them. He could plant pear blossoms in the Rong estate for her. He could give up many opportunities in the imperial court for her. He could even divorce his wife who had never done anything wrong for 3 years for her. No, not divorce. It could be said that he killed her with his own hands. Pong! The door was suddenly pushed open and Luo Lin stormed in. The ground was covered in pear blossoms and the air was filled with the fragrance of pear blossoms. Rong's son and Madame Rong quickly followed, afraid that Luo Lin would hurt their son. For them, it was difficult. Their son did do something wrong and killed the daughter of a family friend. But he was still their son, a life for a life. They were naturally unwilling. Rong Muling, return my daughter's life, Luo Lin roared and took the sword from the guard beside him, stabbing it towards Rong Muling. He sneered and drank a mouthful of wine before slamming the wine pot on the ground. Take it away. I will pay for what I owe her. Don't. Madame Rong rushed up and stood in front of Rong Muling. She looked at Luo Lin with tears in her eyes. Scholar, let my son go. I will pay for Qingchen's life for him. With that, Madame Rong picked up the sword on the ground and was about to cut her neck. Mother. Rong Muling immediately took the sword from Madame Rong's hand and said coldly, her body hasn't been found yet, right? If she is really dead, I will pay for it with my life, but please don't make things difficult for my parents. Pa! A crisp slap landed on Rong Muling's face. Rong Sen's hands trembled as he said, I told you not to marry that woman, but you didn't listen. Others might not know why she performed the rainbow dress dance, but how could I not know? He had been in the imperial court for many years and knew what some people were thinking with just a glance. Moreover, when the empress invited her into the palace, she immediately kowtowed to thank her and never returned to the Rong estate. Whether it was Madame Rong or him, they both regretted saving Lan Lingxian in front of the brothel. Nurturing a tiger would only bring disaster to the Rong family. Father, don't say any more. Rong Muling took a deep breath and said, It's all my fault. It has nothing to do with her, Ling. Why are you still protecting that woman at a time like this? Madame Rong cried out with all her might. She's just trying to come back to you. You. Sigh. At this moment, Rong Muling's heart was dead. His gaze suddenly fixed on the pear blossom tree, not far away. He laughed self-deprecatingly and said, If you don't fall and shatter your bones, how would you know pain? He had spent his entire life loving only one person, but she didn't stop drawing a line on his heart that was riddled with holes. Actually, he no longer felt pain. Because the old and new wounds were added together, his heart had long since become numb. After the commotion, Lorraine gradually calmed down. Rong Muling was right about one thing. His precious daughter's corpse had not been found yet, so he could not be completely sure that she was dead. Rather than spending manpower to block the entrance of the Rong estate and not being able to kill Rong Muling, it was better to send more people to search for his daughter. Perhaps there was still a chance of survival. Chapter 2052. At the same time, in Weiyang Palace. In a magnificent palace, the air was filled with the faint scent of sandalwood. The empress was half leaning on the couch, and beside her was Lan Lingxian, who had already returned to the palace. You've done very well in this matter. She slowly took off the jade bracelet in her hand and said, This is your reward. Lan Lingxian revealed a faint smile and took the jade bracelet from the empress' hand. This is what Ling Qian should do. I don't know when I'll be able to see His Highness, the Crown Prince again. She had schemed and schemed, even at the cost of small fortune, not because of any reward, but because she wanted to walk to the side of her sweetheart who she had seen for 10,000 years. Lan Lingqian understood in her heart that she had hurt many people along the way. She knew that she was a bad person, but she did not care, because she was approaching Feng Qianche step by step, approaching that unreachable dream. The crown prince went to Shui Feng Mountain to pay respects to his mother and has yet to return. This one said that this is your last task. The empress took a sip of Bai Luo Chun and said, even if you cannot marry into the crown prince's eastern palace, this one will not treat you unfairly. Hearing the empress say this, Lan Lingqian's heart was filled with disappointment. She suddenly knelt down and said, Empress, Lingqian's heart can be seen by the sun and moon. If I marry the crown prince, I will give up everything for his position and power. The empress lowered her eyes, and there was a flash of light in her eyes as she said, there are some things that this one cannot decide. After all, this one is not the crown prince's birth mother. If he wants to choose a princess, only the emperor and himself can decide. Actually, the empress was very clear in her heart that Lan Lingqian had already been bewitched by the crown prince. If she became the princess of the crown prince, she would do everything to help the crown prince. For Feng Qianche, this was definitely a matter with only benefits and no harm. Empress, Lan Lingqian heard this, and tears began to fall. She said in a choked voice, does Lingqian really not have a chance? Silly girl, get up first. The empress reached out to hold her hand and said, over the years, you have done so many things for the crown prince, and this one understands this. If possible, this consort also hopes that you can become his crown prince consort. After all, this consort also owes him. For so many years, the empress did not have a son or daughter because of the existence of the crown prince. In fact, she was not an ambitious person, but she had done something wrong in the depths of the palace. Linglong's death back then had something to do with her. If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't say anything despite knowing that there was something wrong with Linglong's postpartum medicine, perhaps the crown prince wouldn't have been born without a mother. And the person who had tampered with Linglong's soup was her mother. The empress was from the Wang clan. Back then, they were quite influential in the previous dynasty. Her mother had to kill Linglong for the sake of her position. After all, the Phoenix Emperor loved Linglong too much. He could disregard everything for her and only take 1 out of 3,000. And this kind of love was actually a kind of danger in the front court and the back court. Every power was tangled and complicated. Although the love of an emperor was precious, it could not provide complete protection to the person it loved. Linglong's death had become inevitable. Even if the Wang family did not take her on, someone else would. As the empress, Wang Yimou had always felt guilty because of this matter. From then on, she raised Feng Qianche as her own child. Since she was young, if there was any danger in the future, she would use her methods to eliminate the danger. And now, most of the powers in the court were already on the crown prince's side. Only the Rong and Luo families supported the ninth prince. Chapter 2053. Luo Qingxin and Feng Qianche used a full day and night to walk from the bottom of the snowy mountain to the top. The road at the beginning was easier to walk, and Feng Qianche was willing to let her walk a bit. Later on, the road was too bumpy, and he was unwilling to let her walk and carried her to the top of the mountain. Luo Qingxin always had a feeling that she was a burden, but if it wasn't for Feng Qianche, she would have already used teleportation to return to Qingxin Temple. When I carried you on my back, I roughly knew a few things. Feng Qianche chuckled, and his eyes carried a trace of affection. And what is it? She buried her head in the hat, and when she spoke, her voice was slightly muffled, but it sounded very cute. You're definitely not a girl from an ordinary family. Why? Because you're heavy. Luo Qingxin pretended to be angry and jumped down from his back. It's clearly your coat that's heavy. How can you say? In the next second, her mouth was covered by Feng Qianche. At this time, they were at the back door of Qingsan Temple on the right side of the cliff. Feng Qianche could vaguely hear the sounds of conversation coming from the temple. Could it be that Dong Liang and the others had not left yet? There's someone? Luo Qingshun seemed to have also heard the sound. She opened her eyes and used her lips to say these two words. Feng Qianche nodded his head and pulled her behind him. It had to be said that 80% favorability was not the same as 20% favorability. She still remembered that when she only had 20% favorability, Feng Qianche had said to her to find a sword and protect herself. Today, he protected her behind him and did not let her draw her sword again. Feng Qianche walked to the other side of the window and gently opened it a little to observe the situation inside. White silk was hung high in the hall, and there was a coffin placed in the middle. The people kneeling on both sides were monks from Qingsan Temple. There were only 2 guards wearing the same clothes as her guarding the door. Luo Qingshun felt a chill in her heart. They actually did not leave yet. Come with me. Feng Qianche's voice was no longer low and had returned to its original cool as water with a proud tone. What was this situation? Could it be that he planned to face her again? It shouldn't be. With such doubts, Luo Qingshun followed behind him. When they reached the front door of the temple, a pleasant voice sounded. Who is it? A long sword quickly appeared in front of him, but in the next second, it fell to the ground with a clang. At this point, the row of guards standing not too far away all put down their swords and knelt on the ground. This lowly one came late to save your majesty. Greetings to your highness, the crown prince. Yes. Feng Qianche narrowed her eyes. Her gaze was cold and arrogant as she looked at the handsome man in front of her and said, Emohu, has everything been taken care of? Your highness, everything has been taken care of. Emohu cupped his hands and bowed. If your highness hadn't held back, we would have lost this battle. Although I knew there was a traitor among my men of sacrifice, I didn't expect it to be Dong Liang. Feng Qianche's cold eyes narrowed as he softly said through his thin lips, He's been hiding for 5 years, and he's been scheming this entire time. Dong Liang has already been escorted back to the Eastern Palace's prison. The rest of the traitors were not left alive. That's not important. Feng Qianche narrowed her eyes and said, You've done well. Emohu was stunned for a moment. He clearly did not expect Feng Qianche to praise him. While his eyes revealed joy, they also revealed disbelief. Chapter 2054. This is... Emohu looked at Luo Qingshun, who was wearing Feng Qianche's robes and carrying the joyous union bell, and a trace of confusion flashed through his eyes. The future crown prince consort. Feng Qianche curled his lips into a smile, and his right hand gently rubbed her head. His eyes were filled with tenderness and love. Everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. Emohu's mouth was wide open in shock, and he did not recover for a long time. After paying respects to the abbot, Luo Qingshun followed Feng Qianche back. Although this trip to Snowy Peak Mountain seemed to have only taken a few days, in their eyes, it was a very long time. When they returned to Chang, and it was already 3 days later, and they were much slower than when they came. After all, he did not want his girl to suffer from the fatigue of the long journey, so their footsteps were much slower. Emohu's expression was filled with shock the entire way, and most of his expression was stunned. Feng Qianche smiled. He was shocked. Feng Qianche's gentle words. He was shocked. Feng Qianche was bullied by Luo Qingshun. He was even more shocked. The previous crown prince was always in existence as cold as an iceberg, but now he had changed. He had become more like a person of flesh and blood. Inside the carriage, their conversation could often be heard. It was mostly about the future crown prince consort seriously educating the crown prince. Feng Qianche, can you not say such certain words in a situation where no one knows of my existence? Luo Qingshun pursed her lips. Although her heart was filled with joy, she was still very embarrassed. Not to mention his guards being shocked. Even she herself was shocked. As the crown prince, Feng Qianche had directly said that she was the crown prince consort without the consent of the Emperor Feng and the Empress. It would be strange if she was not shocked. Are you certain? Feng Qianche's deep eyes were filled with a faint light as he said, Oh, I know. Luo Qingshun saw his sudden realization and hurriedly said, You're making me feel... I shouldn't say crown prince consort. He interrupted Luo Qingxin's words and curled his lips into a smile. Should I say, according to the common folk, you are my wife? Feng Qianxie, you're just a storyteller. Luo Qingxian blinked her clear eyes and said with a pout, You're purposely trying to piss me off. He gently pinched her face and said, The person I love, I will let the whole world know that I love her, no matter what the situation is. As long as you feel insecure, I will hold your hand tightly. Quang dang. The carriage suddenly fell into a large pit. Emohu hurriedly lifted the curtain and said, Master, I'll fix it immediately. I'll fix it immediately. Feng Qianxie's cold eyes narrowed as she gloomily looked at him and said, I'll give you 15 minutes. Yes. At this moment, Emohu was extremely nervous. It was all his fault for being so engrossed in their bickering that he didn't even notice the huge hole in front of him. Luo Qingxian, who was sitting in the carriage, lowered her eyes in embarrassment. She covered her face with her hands and murmured, So shameful. Will it? Feng Qianxie looked at her with some confusion and asked, Then how do the husbands of the common people express their love to their wives? He had never loved anyone before, and this was his first time. He did not know how to express the feelings in his heart, but he knew that he was willing to let the entire world know who the person he loved was, because she was his pride. Luo Qingxian looked at his somewhat confused eyes, and her lips unconsciously curled into a faint smile. If she had Feng Qianxie by her side in this life, she would be very happy. Thinking of this, she quickly moved closer to him and lightly touched his slightly red lips. Then she said, You're very good.